Welcome.
Welcome. I was trying to find the question real quick. welcome to the Dialog Choices Podcast. We answer questions sometimes and also talk about whatever the actual fuck comes to mind. Questions.
Speaking of coming to mind,
with the way my brain goes, like questions are such a great structure for a podcast because, like, that was the 100 episodes of the Q&A I did. Is just I would just get viewer questions and then I'd answer one per like 45 minutes because I would go on like 75 tangents and like it's like we just need it's like crystals. Like you got your fucking chemicals, you got your chemical sludge in a pool and you just need one contaminant in there to like for everything to start latching onto, and then suddenly the crystals just all take form and all that. Do you know anything about that?
I know how that works. More or less.
That's how crystals like do. They need a nucleus, and like questions half the time are just the nucleus for the tangents. Just like how like we had the structure of the movie thing became like us listening 15 movies was 4 hours because you just need a skeleton to move things on. Anyway, hey, I'm Keith. Sup? That's Colonel.
I'm Colonel,
and that's Andrew.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's also here. Everyone's here.
Yay.
Not
Except
everyone, the dead people.
Yeah, Stephanie's not here. Stephanie is more guest status, even though she was in the first episode, but she won't be consistently around necessarily because she has a day job that
Didn't we
does not have
establish
regular
before
hours.
that she had perished?
Yeah, no, she's dead. She's dead and
that's the
buried.
one. Okay.
But
Yes.
like, you know, when she's done with her shift of being dead, the necromancer can bring her by and, you know,
That's how I do.
boom, deep lore.
So
Yeah,
how?
this lore's getting really deep, actually.
Yeah, we'll just keep
was a necromancer
yes-anding it for the next 300 podcast
Yes-anding.
episodes until it just is its own cinematic universe. Then
So
we'll get a
how
movie
much do you-
tie-in and animations.
How much do you hate timed dialogue choices? Since that's our
I mean, like in a
Tying to dialogue choices?
no timed as in like with a timer.
like.
I hate
like
timed
The
dialogue
Walking Dead.
choices.
But how much do you hate it?
They're the fucking worst. For me, there's only you have to do it very well, and sometimes Telltale can do it well in that it's less a dialogue choice and more of like a choice of like do an action, like which of these people do I save in this intense situation that is tense and like it's clearly communicated, but it might have ramifications later that you don't foresee, but that's like how it would be for the player themselves and so on. Like that kind of stuff can be like really interesting. But then you play like Alpha Protocol and it pisses me off.
Yeah, I was thinking of that.
Because the game never fucking stops talking, and you have to proactively queue up your dialogue choice in advance so that they designed it so that the game never pauses. Like they want you your choice will play out the moment that they finish talking. So what you do is you essentially press a button, and instead of like instantly selecting it just kind of is highlighting that option, and it will activate that option the moment they finish talking. But it'll also auto highlight something if you don't pick something in time, and it'll just play itself and just ruin your character. But the problem is that it does like the Mass Effect thing where it makes your dialogue choices vague instead of just explaining them thoroughly and in their entirety. Also known as the Fallout 4 thing too, where it's just like, what do these even mean? But on top of that, in many cases, they're like misleading and confusing. So you genuinely don't know what your character is going to say, but you have to pick it under a time limit. And so your character just becomes this incoherent mess. And it's all for the sake of trying to make these dialogue moments like feel like they're paced well or something. But
I don't think that's why they exist. But sorry, finish.
But I think it's part of it. But like the only people that benefits is the audience of a Let's Play. Like they're the only people like, wow, the pacing's so much better when it never stops. But like for the player,
ramble.
yeah, like for every human player that's in the world playing that game, they're just like, it just keeps going. It's just Like I had to be convinced by a Raycivic video that Alpha Protocol was worth playing, because I played Alpha Protocol when it came out, and it lasted like half an hour because the dialogue put me off so hard that I stopped playing the entire game. Well,
that's my experience as well.
Well, the dialogue and the gameplay. Like I played like the very, very first mission, and immediately I was like, this is somehow worse than Mass Effect 1. Because like Mass Effect 1 was a game that I also like. I put it down the first time I played it because I hit it. The combat just felt wrong because it looked like it should play like Gears of War, but it didn't play like Gears of War. Like,
That's
it was
true.
Just it was all slightly wrong and off from Gears of War, despite being a cover shooter. But then I came around to it, and now Mass Effect 1's like one of my favorite games of all time. But
I'm playing it right now, and the shooting does have bugs.
Yeah.
Like every once in a while,
Yeah.
if you want to shoot, it doesn't shoot for
Like
no
what-
reason whatsoever.
that's new. That's not a thing I experienced on Xbox. But
It's not very common, but it does happen. And there's the cover system is not as intuitive as it should be.
no, in part 'cause it doesn't have like a lock on and so on. But like,
Yeah.
yeah, like I played the Eden Prime mission of Mass Effect 1, and I put the game down for like a month because I was like, I didn't like that. But in Alpha Protocol's case, I put it down forever. And the Race Civic made a video hyping that game up somewhat, and it's like, what a brilliant, interesting mess. Exactly the kind of game that I like to look into on my channel, like Anachronox and whatnot. So like, you know what, I'll give it a second shot. And I was right about a lot of things. It has some really interesting ambitions and crazy branching narratives and so on, but you won't really experience that playing it once, and it's not fun enough to play twice. So it's kind of like, eh. But yeah, the gameplay is trash almost across the board, and the dialogue, while amusing and sometimes well written, the actual like way it's implemented, where it's all in real time and going too fast, and in many cases you don't even get to finish hearing what they're going to say before your next dialogue choice is already queued up and chosen. So it's just like it's a disaster. You pretty much just have to like mindlessly do exactly what people criticize Mass Effect for and KOTOR for. Is like Mass Effect in particular, it streamlined things to a wheel, and then made, if you're just going to mindlessly play one alignment and not consider the dilemmas, you're just going to pick like that one corner every single time a conversation happens. That's where your dialogue tends to go, like like your Renegade or Paragon corner. And like,
Yeah.
Alpha Protocol's that, but worse, because you don't have time to understand the dialogue, so you just reflexively pick your corner that you usually pick and hope it works out. And that's like so much worse.
Yeah, that's probably the worst example in any game that I know.
Yep.
What about you, Andrew? How much do you hate them?
I don't really play games with them, so I don't experience them there very often, thankfully. I think if it's not a Telltale game, I don't really... I don't really come into contact with time dialogue choices, because they're not great. It's not an enjoyable way for me to experience a story, because I like to think about, just in real life, I like to think about the things I'm going to say before I say them. I don't just like, and especially like the problem Keith said is in a lot of Telltale games, I say yes, and it goes, yeah, I also fucking hate that guy. I'm like, no, I just wanted to say yes. Why did you say the other part? And it's like, well, we didn't have space to write the whole thing. It's like, then don't give me that, don't just say yes, like, yes, ... insult. It's something else that makes me know I'm not just selecting a choice that's going to screw me in the end because you didn't provide context.
Like an Alpha Protocol,
novels,
if you pick the left option, sometimes you just harass people. Like, or you hit on someone very badly, and I'm like, I didn't know he was going to say that.
There's some of those lines are
Or there's one of my favorite lines of the entire game is when you tell Scarlet to go like work her moves on someone, but of course you didn't know you were going to say that. You just picked like the left option and hoped for the best, and then you're like, oh god, what are you doing, Mike, or whatever your name is? And then Scarlet's like, wow, when I was a little girl I always wanted to grow up to be a honey trap. And it's like, it's the funniest line in the entire game, but it's also me getting dunked on for a thing that I didn't actually choose, so it's infuriating.
I've played a lot of visual novels, and knowing what you're saying is really important, and not being told what you're going to say is indicative of a bad game design. Like, nobody likes to be tricked into picking the wrong choice, and it only goes double when you're playing with earnest. When you're like, oh no, I honestly want to roleplay as this character, I'm going to make this choice as this character, and then it goes like, okay, here's all this other stuff you didn't go. And it's like, well, thanks for breaking the immersion.
I only like being tricked if I pick a dialogue choice knowing full well what it is and what it means and so on, and then there's unforeseen consequences.
Yeah, like The Witcher.
Because that's just storytelling.
Well, yeah, that's different. But I also like that. Yeah, if I say yes to something and someone goes like, actually, because you said yes, I'm going to kill you. It's like, oh shit. Well, that's on me. I guess I didn't know you were a bad person. But
that's why it's worth noting too that, like, as far as I can remember, in Walking Dead, for example, timed dialogue choices are a deliberate choice that's used selectively. If I remember correctly, I believe that throughout the game, you actually just get to pick whatever thing you want to and you get to take your sweet time on a regular basis. But it's like specific moments, I think, are the timed moments, because those are the moments that are important. And it's like, here's a tense thing, and it's meant to be tense, but we've made a point to set up the choice so that you understand what you're doing. So now it's just a matter of like having the time pressure to make the choice, like save this character or that character.
I think even in those occasions, it's still what Andrew is talking about. It still matters. Still, what Andrew said about stopping and thinking.
But I like, so here's the thing. I get the idea of split-second decisions. Sometimes there is something that comes up that is very quick. You have to make a snap decision on something. Like, I use Walking Dead as an example. Someone gets bit. You got to make a snap decision on if you're going to cut their arm off or not, or you're just going to blow their brains out. Like, because you either want to stop them from getting infected, or you're just going to let them get infected because whatever. But so you need to like make a yes or no decision when someone goes like, do I cut my arm off? And you're like, yes. The difference is the difference being that if you're trying to give the player a choice that requires more context, or like it's going to be a deep explanation for something, just add more dialogue choices in between. You can say like, you can add a dialogue choice of someone agreeing or saying a certain thing, like, no, I don't think that's a good idea. And the person goes, why? And then you can rest your case with another dialogue choice. And even if the choices aren't, you can do the telltale thing where like, well, 2 of these choices are important. The rest of them are kind of like, haha.
Mm-hmm. That's what there's a little bit of a Deus Ex where like, there's negotiations in Human Revolution where you're like, I can't tell which dialogue choices are high impact here, or if they're all important, and how you don't know what dials are being moved in the background, and that makes it really tense.
Yeah.
I've been very lucky now that I'm playing Human Revolution, and I've been sort of like trying to read into what the game wants in those negotiations. But I can definitely see where you're coming from, because it's usually like pressure and
the very first interrogation-y, negotiation-y kind of scene you have in the entire game, like the end of the intro level with the eye patch guy, is like, oh god, this is a whole new system and it's working differently than I'm used to, and it's like, it's tense because you're kind of uncomfortable because you don't have the usual safety net of like just sort of hanging out and exhausting the dialogue like you do in like a Dragon Age game or whatever, and then making a choice when you're done or whatever.
Yeah.
You're like, I don't know which parts of this thing count, or if they all count, and what is the system.
I think I know why the timed. I don't remember what the game was that I first saw timed dialogue choices in, but it was definitely around the era of the Xbox 360. I don't think they existed before that. But what Andrew was talking about, especially in the visual novel, where it's just text after text, you spend your time reading a lot. And in old school RPGs, that's the same thing. Well, in some old school,
like among other things, it's tied to dialogue being voiced. Because a lot of dialogue used to be just entirely text, and so they had to just let you sit there and read the dialogue boxes, and then scroll through your 75 possible responses in Planescape Torment and so on.
The thing is, even for dialogue that is voiced, you still like the enjoyment of an RPG, or it doesn't have to be an RPG, but a video game that has a lot of dialogue, and the enjoyment of a visual novel. It's very different from the enjoyment of a TV series. And that's why, or even a movie. And that's why in movies or a TV series, there's not like very, very long scenes. There's other reasons for that, but the pacing becomes like, it's fundamentally different, the pacing in a movie or in a TV series than in a video game. In a video game, you can have a dialogue for half an hour with a character if you need be. The reason is the same as you can read a book for half an hour about the same thing, because it's just a different type of writing.
Like video games are to TV shows what TV shows are to movies. Like, it's such a wide, on some of these games, it's like, I'm going to play this one game that's functioning like a season of a TV show, basically, for 40 hours. And it's going to be a lot of me standing still and talking to people.
So you need time to take a break. You need time to be able to absorb and stop and think a little bit. Of course, people are going to play the way they want to, and some people just don't even wait for the dialogue to be narrated. They just sort of skim and go with whatever choice they want. But I'll never forget, because it's an amazing game, and also because it's an amazing character, the moment I realized what I believe Parvati from the Outer Worlds is supposed to be. And no spoilers here, but she is, in my opinion, a player insert in an RPG, which is I have never seen. You know how in movies you have the viewer inserts and people who are there to...
Yeah, normally the assumption that the game's player insert is the protagonist.
Yeah.
Because you play them.
I think in the Outer Worlds, Parvati is there as a second layer to that, because the way she talks, there's a reason for that. I'm not going to go into spoilers right now, but my point is, the moment I understood that was in the middle of a dialogue. I was just talking to her, and she said some lines, and I was like, wait a minute, this is a pattern. Now I was detecting a pattern. So I stopped that dialogue, and I processed that. Of course, I was doing a Let's Play, so I rambled about it for 10 minutes. But with the time choice, it's an endless barrage. If it's like a movie, you can't stop, because it doesn't let you. It's on purpose to not do that. But games have that tool where you can stop, and it doesn't break the game, and you can think about it. It's like a book or like a visual novel.
With Parvati, there's almost a weird aspect where like she goes on the hero's journey, but you're playing the mentor character that takes her on it, but you don't die.
Oh, you don't die because that's a trope.
Because the Obi-Wan Kenobi character always dies in those stories. Because it's always like you're like in a small like farm village or whatever the hell, and then you think that's going to be your whole life, and you're settling into that, but there's some sort of discontent. Then a big thing happens that shakes up your life, and you have the call to action to go on this big quest, and like an old mentor figure kind of guides you on the opening steps and gives you the information you need for this quest, and then promptly gets murdered. And then you have to go off and you change and you grow and you rise up. But then when you defeat your big thing, then you can't really ever go back home. Which is what happens to Frodo. That's what happens to Luke. Like, they never go back to their original home again because they've changed too much for where they came from. But in this case, you don't die in Outer Worlds because you're the protagonist.
I think that's that's the literal, what happens literally to Parvati, but I was thinking more in who she is as a person. Like, for me, one thing that really marked me for her as a character is when she first describes the boss of Edgewater. And she says, he's not really evil, or he's not really mean, not really. And I think Parvati is always very preoccupied with what goes in the soul of souls of each person. And that's how she relates to the world. Every one of her lines is supposed to be there, and it's kind of that is an interesting thing, because in a game that is preoccupied with satirizing system or a system, her character doesn't really gel with the overall storyline. And if you as a player go into the Outer Worlds and try to place the blame on individuals for whatever is happening in the Outer Worlds, you're going to miss the or you're going to miss the forest for the trees. And Parvati does miss the forest for the trees, I feel. So that's why I think when I realized that, it was like a breakthrough for me. But I think that happens a lot. Like, that is the point of visual novels. I haven't played many of them, or I played two only.
Yeah, Parvati is basically the deuteragonist.
I like how you all had this experience. I just didn't have companions the whole fucking game.
Yeah, which is a choice people make. People just choose not to have companions.
There's so much stuff I didn't have exposure to just out of sheer necessity to get through it. And it's so interesting to me that, like...
You played it like Fallout.
And I keep forgetting that there is that option. Like, I started the DLC back up, and I got on my ship, and because, like, the DLC is dumb, and I messed up on saving a spot, I had to go back to a pretty far save to play it, because I was already inside of the final chapter, and you can't you can't go back to your ship before then. Like Mass Effect
it doesn't take place after the story?
No, it takes place in the middle of the story.
Oh, that's frustrating.
Yeah. It is very frustrating.
The game
and
makes a save for the point of no return, but
no, it doesn't.
For me, it did.
It did not for me.
It's very close to the end, but you might have broken it because you killed everybody. So the game didn't know it was the point of no return. That was already the beginning was the point of no return for Andrew.
But I had to go, so I like returned to an old save, and I like started doing the storyline quest, and then like as I was doing it, I got brought onto the center of the ship. I got brought into like the center of the ship because like the call to action happens, and then it brings you to the round table where all your people sit. And I forgot I had 2 companions at one time that I kept on the ship because I needed them for something.
You had the saddest conversation.
Oh, did you? Did you later get rid of them or something?
Yeah, so I brought them on so I could use them for a specific mission because I wanted to get like a weapon that they give for doing a mission or something, and then I just got rid of them. And so,
you had Nyoka probably and Sam.
Yeah.
Remember, I was always tiptoeing around that because the fucking game, every time you talk to somebody, it's just right there in the dialogue. It's like, hey, get the fuck off my ship. And it's like you have to carefully not press it all game.
Yeah, and I got the call to action, and then it goes to this round table. It's like, so what we got here, Captain? I'm like, who let you onto my fucking ship again? Why the fuck are you guys here? And I was like, oh god, I forgot to kick you out. So I immediately went through the dialogue all really quickly, and then I reloaded my save, ignored the call to action, went over and kicked both of them out of my ship, and then went to the call to action so I could do the story.
So you can be alone. What happens when when you kick people off? What happens? Do they just vanish from the game, or can you like go recruit them again?
I don't know. I never turned around.
You never just encountered them on a previous planet again.
No, I just kept walking. I did. I think I did go back to the. No.
So I was gonna say you go back to that space station a lot, so like you'd probably encounter the redhead again.
What's it called? The girl from the first part.
Parvati?
Parvati.
Who's voiced by Ashley Birch.
She shows up later in the game, for something in particular.
That's interesting.
There was a part where like she showed up for me later in the game somewhere, and she's like, "Yeah, we're friends." And I was like, "Who the fuck are you?" I was like, "I've never had you the entire game. Who the fuck is this person?" I was like, "Is this a person I should know?" And it was like, "Yeah, this is your first companion." I was like, "Well, I didn't even accept your offer. I told you no." Like, did you think
there are games that just don't know what to do if you behave certain ways? Like they don't account for the idea that a player will behave certain ways that they technically allowed.
Don't give me that option.
I ran into this in like the first year of my channel. I covered Bound by Flame because I was hungry to find like Souls likes to try to continue the wave of like the audience I had so far. And it's like, okay, it's got lock on targeting and a stamina system and it's an action RPG. It's like close enough or whatever. But there was this. I had clear favorites in my companions, and then I had specific companions that I didn't like them. And there was
all do.
There was this one lady that I don't know, I think she might have been religious, or she was supposed to be like the pure character or something like that. It's been the game. This was like 7 years ago, so it's harder to remember now, or 6 years ago. It was the launch of the PS4, but she. Like I just didn't like her even a little bit, and thought she was so boring, and didn't want to even acknowledge the idea that she could be a party member, because you can only have like one party member at a time, I think, and there were just way better options. So I never did it. I never talked to her, never dealt with her. And then at the end of the game, she's like, "After all we've been through, how could you betray us?" and stuff like that. When I'm like killing her off at the end of the game, and I'm like, I don't even know your name.
Did we even talk to each other?
There's times where characters get so like, how could this happen? You, my favorite, or whatever, and I'm like, I don't know you.
Yeah, that's even worse than what happened to me the last time I played KOTOR, where a certain romance could have been developed, but then I decided not to. For one reason or another, and then in the end, it was just like you have one last hurrah, one last chance to develop that romance, and it feels so awkward and so forced. I was like, oh my god,
that scene's strange. I also vaguely did everything right, kind of, but not quite. So it didn't work. And I was it's like when you're used to more modern BioWare games, you're like, oh wow, romances are really easy. You basically just decide that's the path you want to go down, and it largely just kind of works. But in KOTOR, Bastila is so convoluted that it's straight up like,
I thought
half the time you don't know why you failed, if you even do fail. And then there's another character who is so complicated and so convoluted, but also so buggy that people still can't tell what the rules are for her. Like they literally can't tell, like, do you have to be light side or dark side or male or female? And it's like, it's so up in the air because they can't tell which part is the logic of the game and which part is bugs.
I went and looked into a video when you mentioned that in the last episode of KOTOR.
Yeah, because I didn't even know you could do that. I've played the game multiple times. And I had no idea.
There's videos on YouTube about people doing that. My favorite, like, if we're talking about killing off characters, my favorite, like, BioWare can do it and has done it. Dragon Age Origins, for me, is my favorite BioWare game of all that I've played. And I did the choice of the murder of the character. I'm not going to spoil it for right now. And too much anger in the comments and in the like section. But the game played out. I really thought it was a great thing. Like, because it's relatively early, or I mean, I suppose in the ending sequence.
Oh yeah, no. Let's playing RPGs is super weird because there's supposed to be this vast possibility of choices that are possible, but people will be mad at you if you don't play a specific way. And part of that is like part of the requirement of how to correctly play an RPG for the public, just like how like Dark Souls viewers are like mad if you summon ever. RPG people are mad if you ever don't recruit every single companion and keep them around, and then also probably marry the one they want, and so on. Like I still get people yelling at me for which characters I coupled up with in Inquisition and so on. But also, like, I did a dick playthrough of, like, at the beginning of my channel, I was afraid of doing a full RPG because I'd never done it before, and it seemed like it'd take forever, and I didn't know what I was getting into. So I figured one way of simplifying it is I'd role play this angry elf mage that's just totally a what do you call it? Someone that just makes reasonable, like, deliberate choices that is like utilitarian, pragmatic. Like he was just gonna be completely pragmatic and straightforward, but also kind of a dick, and just try to get through his goals. So yeah, you get faced with choices with like characters like Sten. It's like, this guy's a murderer, and it's like, all right, bye. Like, just take it at face value and move on, and don't interrogate the entire quest and do the whole chain to get like a companion. And like, you end up like abandoning or killing like half of the possible characters, and you have like 3 party members total. And it's like a completely different fucking setup. But like, people don't like it. People don't like those playthroughs.
That happened to me in Pathfinder Kingmaker. And while I have a lot of other problems with Pathfinder Kingmaker, the aspect of you being able to kill off companions or potential companions is a really fun one. There's like at least 3 companions that which is a worrying coincidence. There's at least 3 companions that the first introduction to you is them basically bullying one of your companions, and twice it's the little kid mage. She's not kid. She's like the game says that she's about 20 or something.
Isn't she like a gnome or something? Or a halfling?
No, I'm talking about the redhead mage. I don't remember her name now. But yeah, they specifically, like, once there's this one guy, he's evil, but still there's this one guy where he's like trapped in some mud or whatnot. You arrive and you say your thing as your character, and then she says something else, and he basically tells her to shut up. And I'm like, okay, you're dying, because there's an option here. You're dying right now. And it turns out that's the only treasurer that you have for like the vast majority of the game. So it's like a terrible decision. But he did.
But you're making a choice based on their behaviors and not their their role that they're going to turn out to have later.
Yeah, because you don't even know that he's a companion. Yeah. Although I started to develop a sixth sense sort of thing, because whenever the game lets you kill a companion on the very first dialogue, or kill a character on the very first dialogue, that's when you're talking to a companion. Yeah. So
I'm looking at my gameplay now, and it wasn't the girl you're talking about basically the narrator?
That's Lindsay. Oh,
isn't she like the scribe recording the whole story or something?
She left me in the tutorial because she was so angry at my choices.
Oh yeah, that's an interesting thing, is that you make choices in the intro, and it's like a 90-minute chunk of game, and then at the end of that, I think you get completely different party members based on how you played the intro.
And the narrator of the game can leave your party.
Yeah, the game throws the game throws like 10 characters at you, and you get a completely different like grouping of them based on how you played the intro. It's such a cool idea.
Yeah, I think the beginning of the game is a lot stronger than later on, but the beginning, that is a really cool idea. I was upset that Lindsay unfortunately came back because I didn't like her. She's the worst. But the character I was talking about is Octavia. She shows up pretty soon. Yeah, but not in the intro, I don't think.
Yeah, I did a Let's Try of that. I'd probably start over if I ever did a series, but it's just there's so many fucking games. And like that game's also known for being monstrously long.
That game is monstrously long.
I'm just like, I've still got Pillars 2 to do.
Needlessly long. I had my Let's Play, I think it was like 180 episodes, half an hour each. No, 40 minutes each. And I had to cheat for the last 25.
That's still shorter than Pillars of Eternity, at least. The first one.
But I literally had to engage God mode for the last 25 episodes because I could not beat the game. And people on the reviews, all of them say that the game is absolutely impossible to beat, even on the lowest difficulty.
What the fuck?
Yeah, that game is made for min-maxers. You know how Dungeons and Dragons has the plague of people who know every little nook and cranny and then just
the exhausting people.
Those exhausting people were so attached to Dungeons and Dragons 3.5 that they made Pathfinder, and now Pathfinder is the
no my
the game is made for those people.
My like college campaign group had this one guy that would min-max so hard and rules lawyer so hard to get a broken character that he at one point he was like trying to do this system where he'd functionally have like 3 characters at once, essentially, because they were technically like the thralls or whatever of the original character. And like our DM got so sick of him that he had him run the next campaign, and then one of the encounters we had was like some sort of bizarre tentacled monster where every tentacle had a weapon. So it was like a weird mimic nightmare, and like no joke, like there were so many actions happening per turn that every turn took half an hour. And it's like, just chill the fuck out, dude. Like at some point D&D is supposed to be a fucking storytelling engine, not just like combat simulator. But like he's one of the 2 people in my fucking vampire campaign that was just running into random suburban homes and murdering people and setting them on fire, thinking it was a dungeon with loot or something, as opposed to like a suburban neighborhood that just is a suburban neighborhood because this is role playing and not everything that you can attack is a valid target to attack. That's not how D&D and other tabletop games work.
That's the thing is, there's a lot of people for whom the whole notion of tabletop role playing is just, you know, min-maxing and the strategy, which is totally fine. I mean, I'm not.
You just gotta. I mean, you really need to like figure out what type of player you are first, and then find your group accordingly, and not just like when you mix match people, it's such a mess because then you get like 2 role players and 3 murder hobos, and like that's not gonna work.
Mm-hmm. So I get the impression that Pathfinder Kingmaker is made for those people. Not that it sacrifices the storytelling, although I have issues there, but it doesn't sacrifice it for the sake of combat. It's just that it is really, really, like, if later in the game, for the last easily 20 hours of the game, the vast majority of combat starts with you getting blinded. Your whole team gets blinded, and blinding is permanent in that rule set. So you need to cast this spell that it's remove blindness, and of course you have spell slots, so it's like it requires you to sleep, and sleeping requires rations, and it's like the worst thing that they could do is make you blind. Mm-hmm. All the whole team. It's also on DCs that are absolutely ludicrous, like 25 DC. Who has that? Even like and it's every second. It's like it's so ridiculous. The ending is I still can't believe that they. I think it goes under the radar because so few people actually try to finish the game.
I wouldn't be surprised. Like the clearance rate of like 15-hour games is so bad. If you look at like PlayStation trophies and other metrics and whatnot, you're like, wow, so few people beat this game. So then you look at these massive games and you probably get a bunch of people that are like, oh yeah, that game was really cool, and they'll like recommend it and talk about it, how fun it was and so on. But then like they'll be like, oh yeah, but I fell off it at some point. I never really got through it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like half the time I start an RPG, people are talking about like, all right, time to try to beat this again, because it's always a game that they never got beat the first time because their commitment.
Do you get people saying, I'll start watching this Let's Play when I finish the game?
Yeah.
And they never come back.
Like, oh, I gotta do another playthrough to stay ahead, and then they probably never really make it.
They never do, yeah. But I think that's why Let's Plays of RPGs are so good, because people can know that when they get tired, they can come and watch. And it's nice.
Till they get banned for copyright reasons.
Oh, hopefully not.
Yay.
I looked into it recently because I'd forgotten about it for a while. It's been more than a year now since I lost my like half the episodes of my Vampire the Masquerade playthrough.
Oh, they never came back?
No. I was like, I forgot how long it's been because I guess 2020 was distracting. But I recorded that playthrough in like April, and the copyright things happened in like September of last year. So the videos were only up for like 5 months, and now they've been down for about 13. It's like they've been gone for like so much longer than they were ever up. It's so frustrating.
And it was like half of them. That's brutal.
Yeah, and they're like random chunks of the playthrough. It's really frustrating because it was a mistake. Because what happened is they put out a special collector's edition vinyl thing of the soundtrack, and then Sony claimed all instances that the bots could find of the elements of the soundtrack and blocked them. And then the artists were like, "Oh God, no, that's not what we wanted," and like they kind of got it retracted. But in that time where they were trying to get it retracted, I tried to appeal I tried to dispute one or two of the copyright matches, and they got rejected. And I'm like, so even though it was a mistake, my disputes got rejected. And once you get rejected, you can't dispute again. Like it's just locked forever. So I think yesterday or the day before, I went in and disputed one of the ones I hadn't disputed before, and then tried to write them a letter like, please remove all of these copyright claims across all of my channel, including the ones that you've already rejected. Like this was all a mistake. The artists themselves were against it. It's all been lifted up, but you guys haven't gone through and actually removed these, even though it was not supposed to be happening in the first place. And it's just frustrating. And at the time, there was somebody that was tweeting about it. That was like kind of a Vampire the Masquerade fan account, and then they had like an inside. They had some kind of like inside connection or something where they were emailing somebody and they were getting these things lifted, and they're like, yeah, get in contact with me if you need to get your things lifted. And I did, and they never got back to me. It's like God damn it.
I saw you talk about it on Twitter. I think it was Andy Vandermeer, was it?
I don't remember, but there was a Twitter user claiming that they could get the things lifted because they were successfully getting like some sort of interaction with the people controlling this, and they just ignored me when I DM'd them. It's like, all right, well, great, buddy.
That sucks.
And I've just been left out to dry, and it's like I'm getting ready to potentially try to download them all and re-upload them with those parts of the game muted or something, but it's frustrating because that makes the videos worse. And like there's plenty of times where the dialogue's playing with the music at the same time, so it's like how the fuck do I edit those parts? And
I can tell you that my last Let's Play, I have two of Vampire, and my last one only has a single one that is copyright claimed, but it is not it's public, so
and then on top of that, you have to deal with just the awkwardness of like without like you're uploading public videos to your YouTube that your subscribers are going to be seeing. That's just like randomly like, here's part 7 of Vampire the Masquerade, and people are like, what the fuck's happening?
You can make them not show up on their subscription feed. You got that little option.
Yeah, but that fucks them even more. Because if they get no engagement, then they're not even going to show up as a suggested video because they're so algorithmically tanked that people that are trying to click from video to watch the series are just going to not have it in their suggested because no one got a chance to see it. It's just,
oh my God, I didn't think about that.
Yeah, because you make the videos do badly if you do that. Not that they're going to do great if you're re-uploading them anyway. But yeah, on top of that, Sony, same company again, because it's both of them are SME. Sony has blocked the finale of my Last of Us 2 playthrough. The one that's like 3 hours long.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, what? You didn't fucking block it when it came out. Why did you block it months later, you assholes? But I tried to dispute that, but like, so I'm like, can you please fucking not? Like, it's in your game that you presume that you want people to share. You put a button on your console for that. Like, please stop taking down people's videos. But like, they
that really sucks.
When you dispute something, you have to wait a month for their response. Sucks.
At most a month. Sometimes
it's usually
answer.
like a month. It sucks.
Yeah.
Maybe that's because it's
The copyright system is garbage, and there's just no fast lane for being like, yo, excuse me, you're doing it wrong. Like, there's no quick fix of that. Like, it's one thing when it's like, oh yeah, you sure got me for when I uploaded a movie onto my channel. That was bad. But it's like, no, no, this is we have an agreement here. Like, this isn't even in your company, people are going to be like, no, that's not right. And it should be nice if we could fix this, but there's no quick way, and they have all the power. And even if you're in the right, and even if it's a thing where like Sony themselves and whatnot wouldn't want to make this video blocked for these reasons, and it's all been fixed and behind the scenes, whoever the fuck runs the account and sees your e-letter can just make a fucking call without checking anything, and then you're fucked because the next step is to take them to court.
The bigger issue is that I don't understand why video game companies are given this access.
I think everybody could do that.
But the thing is like, they do this because there's an obligation, because it could be, because obviously they could face legal repercussions if they don't offer an option for DMCA takedowns. But video games don't fall under that. Like, this is to prevent movies and music, and they try to use the guise of like, well, we put music in the games that we don't want stolen, or that we don't want people to re-upload. And it's like, yeah, but you put them in a fucking video game, you dumbass. Like, the game itself.
You put them in video games that literally have on consoles. There's just a button built into the actual hardware to upload the footage online.
Like, the difference is, I can understand if someone's saying, okay, yeah, you can't upload a TV show or a movie, or even just straight a musical album, because you're taking that's how they make the money that way. But a video game doesn't make money off of people. It doesn't make it money off of people listening to its music in the game. It makes its money by you buying the game, playing the game, and then the music happens to be in it. So, like, there is no copyright being broken because a person who legally bought the game is showing people him legally playing the game he bought. Like,
but that's not necessarily what copyright means.
No, but I'm saying the system, the fact that they can copyright claim on music that's in a game, is really shitty, because it makes more sense if it's only focused on strictly music, videos, and shows. But if you add video games to it, like, yeah, video games have cutscenes. Do you claim those as shows? And like that's what Atlas
Sometimes.
is doing in their thing, where they're like, this is a really important spoiler. You can't break that. It's like, I can, and I legally can. Fuck you. Like, there's no law that says I can't spoil a game. I can drive down the street right now and shout the fucking into Persona. Like, you can't stop me.
Capcom doesn't block the videos, but Capcom claims every single Monster Hunter video that has a cutscene in it.
And the reason they do that is because then they go like, yeah, but we can get money from that. And it's like, that's not why the system exists. It doesn't exist to try to get money out of content creators. It exists to prevent people from committing crimes, which is copyright infringement. Like, that's the only crime it's trying to commit. But the weird added bonus of like, oh, you can get their revenue though, that's what makes it bad. If you take away the whole revenue thing and you just say, you either report that someone stole something and we take it down, or not. There's no credibility for any of these companies where they have to like actually enforce their rules consistently or according to the actual like rules themselves. They're just like, they just kind of randomly snipe videos and decide that, nope, that's our money now. And it's just kind of arbitrary and nonsensical. Like Nintendo is such a good example of this. Nintendo's just like, yeah, we can copyright claim literally anything that has our logo or like has our brand on it. And it's like, what?
Now we're getting to the point where Nintendo's one of the better ones because they don't anymore. But they used to do it. They used to do it for every single Nintendo game, and they were they were one of the worst ones. Although they weren't blocking anything.
No, they weren't blocking. They were just taking all the ad revenue.
They were just stealing your money.
Yeah,
basically.
like when I was in my peak of doing my giant Breath of the Wild playthrough, every single video, all the money was going to Nintendo. It's like, well, this is a bummer.
Yeah,
kind of de-incentivizes the whole thing, which is probably why they realized it was a bad idea. And like, wait, we want people to cover our games. We should stop taking all their money.
That's why it makes no sense that video games fall under the claim system for Google, for YouTube's like DMCA thing.
I don't think YouTube has a clear way of categorizing that in a way that isn't abusable.
Yeah, they do. They have a category called gaming.
Yeah,
and
but then you can just
do,
abuse that by just falsely listing your stuff as gaming.
Which is acceptable, except for the fact that the AI...
Or you could be listing stuff as gaming, but you just fucking play a Beyonce song that's not in the game. And be like, no, it's clear now, because the bots will ignore it because it's gaming. So like, there's a lot of ways to exploit that, potentially, for bad faith.
Or make custom...
Like
make custom GTA soundtracks.
But at the end of the day, you have to...
The main solution is just actually making people do it correctly. Like this is all human error. It's the fact that there are people who are mismanaging their copyright admin accounts and not being punished for it.
Well, copyright does require like a proper overhaul. Like it's all archaic.
The whole reason that this is a problem is because some really rushed, really unthought out like law came into existence, and then tech companies had to find a way to deal with it, which is not what they do. They literally do anything they can to not solve problems.
Yeah, like how do we machine learn this problem?
Yeah, they basically like how do we
itself?
Yeah, how do we make it just not a problem anymore? But it doesn't matter what it affects the end users with.
Which of these squares features a fire hydrant?
It's such a bad. You never. If you want to put regulations on tech companies, you need to be real about it. Like you need to sit down, look them in the eye, and tell them point blank, you follow these exact steps. This is what you must do in order for this to work, or else they will find a way to skirt around that and make it as awful as possible, just so it's not a problem anymore. Like you see that with like, look at the thing like we do like GDPR for cookies. Now every fucking website has a huge pop-up that shows up and it's like, okay, well, just click here to accept all cookies. Like,
some of them are literally half the page sometimes. I'm like, oh my God.
Sometimes it's the whole page. I've seen like full screen pop-ups.
Because no one sat down and said, okay, guys, don't be jackasses about it. You need to literally not take cookies unless they ask you to. Like, you need a button that says, do you want to allow it? But it needs to be like a small button on the small part of your website that's not intrusive to the website. It's like, you have to do those steps or else tech companies will just be obnoxious about it. They're like, fine, tell us yes, or you can't go on the website. And it's like, that's the thing fucking extortion. Like
that should be done on the browser level, though. Like I remember back in probably 2007, 2008.
It shouldn't be a thing. Like cookies don't exist to track you. Cookies are simply existing so that way if you put something in your fucking shopping cart, it stays there when you go to the next page. Cookies aren't supposed to be used in the way they're being used.
They can be used for tracking, but that's not what they use anymore. The thing is, like, I remember, like, back in 2007 or 2008, I had those pop-ups in my browser configured so that every time a website would want to store a cookie, I would just allow or disallow forever. And it worked perfectly. It's basically like GDPR, except it's on the browser level. It should be on the browser level. And, like, I think the reason why GDPR is... It's not GDPR as a whole, because that's... the cookie pop-ups, the reason why those exist is because the people who did the laws don't even know what a cookie is.
Well, again, the solution is a lot easier. You can just sit down and say, you can't use cookies this way.
You can take that nugget and stick it up your Yeah,
if you just sat down and say, like, all right, guys, guess what? You cannot use them for anything except for the most bare minimum purposes. Then that's it. What is someone going to do? Like, well, how do we track it? That's not my problem. You don't do it then.
Yeah,
like, you don't
there's ways to do that.
There's a lot of just tracking people for targeted ads.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is like I don't understand why. Well, I do understand why shitty bills come into existence that don't do a good job of regulating, but I don't understand how this benefits anybody at the end of the day. And that's the thing that confuses me, because it's like it's benefiting some small 1% minority of people, and everyone else just has to suffer with this.
Do you need cookies to stay logged into a website?
That what?
Yes.
Yes. Not necessarily. If you have a server-side authentication, like
let's just say yes because it's easier. Unless you're going to set up something really fancy. Yes, cookies help you. Cookies exist to retain information from a specific browser or connection, page to page. So when you Keith, your browser's Keith number 1. When you connect to a web server, it says Keith number 1 now has a session. All of the actions that he takes place go into this cookie, more or less. So when if you add some food into your shopping cart, you go to the next page so you can change your email address. All of that happens in a session, your own little bubble. And then when you leave, that's it. That's the cookie no longer does anything. It only exists for the small bubble in that website that you've gone to.
Basically, the cookies exist to solve a problem, it's not a problem, but it's a fundamental limitation of the HTTPS, I believe is the name, or HTTP. Yeah, which is every time you access, or HTML, yeah. But the thing is, every time you access a page, whatever it is, it could be google.com, it could be your email, whatever. Every time you access the page, everything that the server knows about you is sent there, not anywhere else. It's not sent anywhere else. So what I mean is that if early this morning you logged into Google, when you access google.com, all the information that Google has on you is going to be sent when you access google.com later that afternoon. So how does Google know that it's the same person that accessed or that logged in earlier that morning? Well, that's where cookies come in, because Google can ask the cookie, and that's what Andrew is saying. It's like a different type of information that's a little bit more hidden than just an email or a page address. But it's kind of complicated, but it's not really complicated. But it's just thing is, people never engage with websites like that because we're just so used to having the sessions or having like cookies are used for simple stuff like remembering that you're logged in for sure, but they're also used for other things like remembering if you have the dark mode enabled on Twitter, or not on Twitter, but on some websites it does that, or if you resized the size of the window of the video that you're watching, or things as simple as maybe the search results are stored in a cookie or the search query rather than the results are stored in a cookie rather than in the session.
There'd be more like settings like YouTube. If you tell it to only play videos in 720p, that is something being stored in a cookie.
For example,
like volume settings, placement on pages. Cookies existed as a way to solve for that. But the problem is that they like most things, it gets repurposed into a marketing method. And the moment you can repurpose it to make money, then it becomes not great anymore. Like you fucked up.
How do we monetize every aspect of society?
To serve the 1% and not the majority.
It shouldn't,
as Andrew just said, actually.
It shouldn't exist like that. You just need to stop that, though. You can make that illegal. And it doesn't break the world by doing it. Like, if you just showed up and said, okay, you can't make cookies do this, websites still exist. You're not going to see, like, the collapse of the internet. People just go like, well, but how do I tell if someone visited my website and I can advertise to them? It's like, that's not my problem, and it's not the user's problem. That's your fucking problem. And you need to solve for it by being better at advertising or getting the word out or doing something else. But don't try to like weasel it. Imagine if you went into a store and the moment you left the store, someone was like, all right, trail that guy, see where the fuck he goes. And like that's the same concept. Is like you just someone's always watching behind your back, and that shouldn't be normal.
It's more pernicious. Or pernicious, that the word is more perverse than how you're explaining it, actually, because the vast majority of cookies that exist are for storing session information, so you can stay logged in a website. But the way they track you for advertising, because you can delete your cookies on your browser, you can just Control Shift Delete, I believe it is, and you can delete that if you want. Because of that, the advertising corporations don't rely on cookies for tracking you. They rely on other things that are never regulated and people don't talk about, like the size of your window, how many plugins you have installed on your computer, what your resolution is, what your keyboard is set to the language of, how long your computer has been on. There's a lot of stuff that the browser communicates just through the nature of the internet.
Even something as simple as like your location, where you're connecting from.
So many things, and it's so unique that it's so like it's basically like a fingerprint. And once you access any website that is set up to register that information on their side, it's not on a cookie, it's on the server side. They register it, and then they know then when somebody with that matching information or partially matching that information, because of course they use an algorithm to partially match everything, but they know when that happens. It's the same person. Let me tell you about my toaster that I have over here.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it would be the bigger issue too is that there's a lot of presumption that much like cars, computers are something that you don't really need to fully understand to use. But that's not
false.
True.
Yeah, people should know.
Yeah. A computer isn't like a car. It's like electricity. You need to be careful when you handle it, because you could fuck a lot of stuff up by not knowing what you're doing very easily. And it doesn't take much time to learn either. Like, you just have to sit down and maybe take like a couple hours of classes, and then you're set, and you'll be good to know, like you'll at least be semi-safe. You'll understand certain words. You'll understand methods. Like, just even taking a simple class on how to use a browser would be so much more beneficial for people for privacy reasons than making laws. But the problem is, like, laws, there isn't a solution, because money finds a way, and there's always a way to cheat the system. The problem is you just need people to be informed enough to not get scammed. Like, that's the problem, is if everybody just knew what they were doing on the internet, then it would be less of a threat. But
yeah, it would. I think it wouldn't necessarily solve the problem forever, but it would be less of a threat for sure.
Well, sure, yeah.
But the thing is, like, especially with the proliferation of things like Internet of Things, smart lamps and all that sort of stuff, that all the old school issues of people having botnets installed on their computer left and right, everybody that didn't know what a password should be like, they would all have like all their computers bogged down with Bitcoin miners and whatnot. These days, it's a lot more complicated than that. It's like your fridge is sending Bitcoins to Romania or something. And your toaster is like sending emails about Trump's campaigns and whatnot.
I think there's like Internet of Things is a completely different. Internet of Things goes into a problem of everyone having their own personal network at home, but again, having no fucking concept of what a personal network is.
And like, networking is so difficult.
Help! Anonymous hacked my pregnancy test.
Yeah, it's like, help, call the internet police. I've had my baby's been downloaded to the Netherlands. Like, the thing is that like again, you have like this personal network, but do you even know how many people actually know how to set up a personal network securely and properly? Not just like, I put a good Wi-Fi password on it, I've done a good deed.
It's worse than that. A lot of ISPs don't allow you to set them up.
Well, that's like, the thing too, is like, do you have your own modem? Because if you don't have your own modem, then someone's just watching everything you do at all times. They're just sniffing that out. And even if you don't have your own modem, like where are your lines going to? Whose infrastructure are you actually connecting over?
With a lot of ISPs, you're not even allowed to own the hardware.
Yeah.
Yeah. Every ISP by law, at least in our state, you're allowed to buy your own modem and use it with their service. But there are some modems, obviously, you can't use, which is fine. Some networks just don't support some modems. But you should always own your own hardware for a network. Like, you should always have your own modem. You should always have your own router. Never use a provided one unless you're above the age of 50, because your life is not valuable at all.
My God.
Like seriously, your browsing, your internet habits is not worth anything. You're usually on a fixed income. You're most likely too old to even be targeted to ads, because you don't do any of the things. Like you're not normally doing any of the things that are going to get you targeted.
You're not playing Fortnite anymore.
Yeah, like you're sitting and watching probably cable television, which means jack all.
It is a different
they can't
thing,
advertise to you. Any case, unless you're above the age of 50, just buy your own fucking hardware. Save up your money, buy your own modem. You can.
It is a tremendous hassle, though. Even if your ISP lets you, it is so maddening. Honestly, figuring out network issues. Your computer is not detected in the network. I have no idea where to start with that.
I don't know, man. I think it's a valuable lesson, and if you can't use that critical thinking, puzzle solving skill in your brain, then like you're being carried through life by the rest of us. Like maybe you should.
I mean, almost that's everybody.
It's everybody.
We're all being carried.
Almost nobody knows much about computers. Like that's just because it's consumer hardware.
And the people who do know, like they're being carried throughout life for other things. It's like,
but that's
which level do you
I don't
not
really know how my stove works.
Or
you don't know how your stove works?
Not really, or my air conditioning, or my car.
There's YouTube channels about that.
Then I apologize. I live a very different life than a lot of you. I don't. You should know how things work.
That's just your entire life. You're just watching anime, or you're just knee deep in manuals. You can't have a single device in your entire house unless you can take it apart and put it back together and know every single part and diagnose which piece needs to be replaced and know what supplier to contact to get it.
I clean my vacuum out every time I use it. Like,
yeah, that's a very different standard.
Is it? Like, people don't do that? Do you not want to keep your fucking vacuum for like 50 years?
No,
Why do you want to buy a new vacuum?
you fucking lowered the bar so hard.
That's true. Yeah,
is that lowering it? Like, there was
the claim of like needing to understand every device ever, and then you're like, yeah, I open my vacuum whenever I use it. I'm like, really? That's fucking baby shit.
Hey,
yeah, wow.
Is it?
Yes.
So you vacuum. You change the air filters in your own AC. You make sure that the insulation in your home is up to date. Like, you should know how most things work in your life. Like an oven, I've replaced an oven.
The dishwasher
at my house.
breaks and you call a guy.
But why would you call a guy? Like,
because you don't have time to fix it.
Yeah,
that's what I do anyway.
It's way too much shit to go through.
Time is a different thing. That's the thing. It's
you
got
to figure out how to like source the parts and all this other shit. It's like, no, I got a fucking life to do. I'm not going to single-handedly handyman every aspect of my life. That's how half of stuff gets worse. Is people think like, oh, I can do it myself, and then they just make They just make things worse. And then you call the guy, and they're like, you tried to do it yourself, didn't you?
Yeah,
it's like, you fucking idiot.
But there are like certain things.
That's the worst thing that half these people want to hear, and it's not just because it robs them of work, but because it makes their job even harder. Is people trying to do stuff themselves all the time when everything in their life is like really, really complicated stuff that's supposed to be just treated as consumer hardware that you don't mess with, and you just call a dude if it breaks or whatever.
There are certain things in your life that you're supposed to do that with. That's the reason people don't have their own servers at home. Is because it's not your responsibility to maintain a network node in your home so you can connect to the internet. That's terrible. That's why we didn't put what's it called for phones. We didn't put the I can't remember the fucking word.
Our entire house is actually worse because somebody thought they could do it all themselves. So all of our electricity is bad.
Yeah, like my old house was like that too.
Yeah, throughout our entire house, there are just electrical mistakes. And like on a regular basis, the wall that has like our fridge and our microwave will just turn off. And you're like, fucking Jesus Christ, why is this always happening?
Is that not dangerous?
No. I don't know.
Be careful with that crap.
That's where I can afford to live.
My dad is an electrician, and that's just a thing that he's complained his entire life, or my entire life anyway, is that he goes to somebody's home and they say, oh, it broke. And then it's so very clear that they messed with it, either because like screws are different or not.
So that's different though. Like plumbing, electricity, and
that's like masterwork.
Gas. But yeah, like there are trade professions.
But fixing your car is also a trade profession.
Yeah.
Like if you need to change the bushings of your
like
car,
when our dishwasher
which
broke,
is simple.
it was the part of it's part of the dishwasher that has all the buttons on it. Like I'm not gonna fucking fix that part.
So here's the thing.
We need a new one, and I'm like, what am I gonna source the part and spend hours trying to track this down, or just call a dude? You're like, oh, I hear this.
I'm in the camp that that tools are yours to maintain, and like infrastructure is somebody else's. So like your electricity or your plumbing or the foundation of your home or like, you know, roads and bricks, those are things you call someone to set up and do because they require skill and a lot of time dedicated into it. But tools are something that you should be responsible for fixing, like a washing machine or a car or things like
I don't agree with a car.
So a car's a little different because
dangerous.
Because it depends on what's broken. Like if it's anything inside of the engine, obviously
I feel like this is all a bunch of excuses and context that mostly just amounts to you just kind of enjoy it.
I don't.
You just prefer to work the problem because it's something
I don't want
to do.
It's something you're supposed to do. You're supposed to fix you maintain your own tools. Like I don't pay someone to maintain my tools.
Something that is done, for example, on an older car. Like if you have a car that's older than 10 years, you usually need new suspension bushings, which is not a very difficult job to make, but it does require specialized tools. There's specialized tools that you can get, but it's an easy enough job that I've done myself by just watching a YouTube video. But I also know that I took my job to my mechanic, and he immediately spotted that I did things wrong, and the YouTube video didn't teach me that, and I had to pay. Ended up paying more. But
see, I had the inverse option. I paid hundreds of dollars, brought it to a shop, and they broke it.
That also happens.
And I brought it to the literal dealership that I bought the car from, and they were like, "Yeah, we made it so you can never use the electronic key in your car, or else it blows the fuse." I was like, "How? That wasn't a feature. How did you add that to my car? How did you fucking do that?" And so I had to, I went and did it myself via a YouTube video where I took out the fuse box, replaced it with a new one, changed some wiring around, and now it's fixed. Wow, holy fucking hard shit that was.
I mean, that's a whole separate discussion.
Yeah, that's
what I'm saying.
Straight up bullshit happening.
There's different instances. Like I think
that's like when I brought my car in to get maintained this year, and it's like, you guys do like, you guys have replacement windshield wipers, right? Because I need those. And then they said, yeah, and so on. And then I'm driving home, and I realized that my windshield wipers are just still not replaced. I'm like, cool, thanks. But like, that's not the matter of like who maintains your tools. That's just somebody either ignoring you or not doing their job or doing their job poorly.
Hopefully they didn't charge you.
No, they didn't. They just fucking tuned me out. Changing
your windscreen wipers is super easy. You should do it.
Yeah, no, I've done it before.
Change your oil.
It's because I was maintaining my car for a trip, and it's quarantined and all that. I was like, I can save a trip by just buying windshield wipers here, can't I? Don't you guys have them? And they're like, yeah. And then they just didn't do it. I'm like, cool. Glad I tried to save time here.
Yeah, there's again, like, a car is unique because there are aspects of a car you can't literally do anything about without having a full workshop in your garage. But there are things about cars that you should know how to do, like replacing tires is something you should know how to do yourself. Here
in Portugal, that's part of the exam. If the examiner wants to make you change a tire, they can make you change a tire. So you need to learn it.
I don't even know what our exams are testing for at the end of the day. Like my first time I took
parallel parking makes the list, which is funny.
Which is great. You know how many times I've parallel parked in my fucking life? I can count it on one hand.
You definitely it's like a test problem, or even if you cram for it and practice it for the test, like if it's not coming up in life, then it doesn't really matter that you tested for it once. It's like you're right back to not really remembering how to do it well, because it's like a lot of muscle memory and shit.
Yeah,
it's not like a knowledge thing. It's like a really specific weird groove.
I remember the first time I took when I took the first driving test I ever took at the DMV, I failed because twice I got dinged for someone cutting me off.
Yeah, you should have been spotting them, but that's very difficult for a new.
Yeah, I should have been paying it. Yeah, that's my fault. It's my fault. Someone else drove like a fucking asshole. I was so mad. I looked at that guy. I was like, I'm gonna get out the car and punch the fucking guy who cut me off. Does that get points back? Is that extra credit?
Well, that's
Can
one
I get
way
my
to fail
fucking
the
points
test.
back? Like it. And the next time I did it, I literally drove so slow. The person's like, you need to go faster. It's like, are you gonna ding me for that, or can I just keep driving slow? Because someone can't cut me off if I'm going so fucking slow that they can't literally cut in front of me. Like they have to normally go. And it's like, oh, fine, be a jackass.
You can get in trouble for somebody else cutting you off.
Yeah, cutting you off.
How does it even work?
It's like
exactly. That's what I fucking said. How does that work? It's not my problem. They fucking did that. Like,
tell me,
the person cut me off. They're like, "Wow, why?"
You're so shouty today.
Sorry,
you've been yelling for like 40 minutes.
It's so infuriating. I hated getting my driver's test.
Does the law require you to facilitate somebody who has initiated an overtaking maneuver?
I don't know what half the fucking shit you just said.
So here in Portugal, I think it's everywhere in Europe as well. If you are being overtaken, and you can only overtake on the left, so I know that's different to some states in the US.
Okay.
So if somebody is overtaking you, you have to maintain your speed. And you have to also, besides maintaining your speed, you also have to facilitate the maneuver when necessary, even including you need to stop if things get crap.
I mean, you
should
should definitely facilitate it if people are driving into oncoming traffic to go around you.
For example, yeah. So what that means is that if somebody overtakes you and crashes into you while coming back onto your lane, the fault is yours. Here in Europe, here in Portugal.
What?
Yeah. So that's why
I see. I didn't take the shitty maneuver. That's your fucking responsibility. But
it could be different in the US because if there's no law obliging you to facilitate the maneuver, then it's not your fault.
So that only shows up in, what is it? Freeway, highway? It's only in a like in that setting, not in city driving. So when you're in a town or on a typical two lane road, you don't have, in a typical 2-lane situation, you don't need to worry about that because someone overtaking you isn't normal because we have the lines in the road that tell you you're not allowed to drive over them to overtake someone.
Yeah, and
so in most cities you can't. There's not unless if it's a 2-way road, you don't really get options to overtake. The roads are always a solid line. Mm-hmm. So in a freeway setting, that's different. Yeah, normally you're supposed to. I don't think there's a law against it. I think it's common decency. You're supposed to back up and let them in.
But they could play a role in the dinging here. I don't know.
Mine was in the
guessing.
city. I was in a city. They were not supposed to take me over. I was going to a light. So I was driving up to a light. They went from. They were coming in a lane that was going forward only, and I was going into a turn lane. And so they were like, "Oh, I need to go into the turn lane." So they just drove ahead of me and cut me off to get in front of me before I could turn. And so I had to go on the brakes, or else I would hit them because I wasn't like they're in a completely different lane that that's not supposed to interact with mine. And they cut in front of me, and so I had to quickly stop on the brake. And then the light changed while they were doing that, so they hit the brakes quickly. So I had to hit the brakes again because they literally just ran in front of me and then went on the brakes as I'm already going a consistent speed. And so like I had no time to react to it. I didn't hit them, but I had no time to like properly react without slamming on the brakes to do it. And the person was like,
that might have also.
It's like, well, that was bad on you. I was like, how? This fucking asshole did a crime. He committed a crime.
I know what you're saying, but I think that's the same here as well. Like if you step on your brakes, like if you're not driving defensively and you have to step on your brakes like that, you don't pass here either.
And that's why. So I was like, okay, the next time I took it, I was just pedantic about it, and I did everything so fucking so terribly slow that there's no way you could ding me for being reckless. And
that's not bad advice. I think that's reasonable.
It's not real though. That's not how I'm going to drive.
Of course, yeah. And but it doesn't matter. Like you're there to pass the test. You're not there to be super good at driving.
Tests are bad.
It's dumb. I remember. I don't think I've ever actually taken. I think the first time I went to get my license was the only time I ever studied. for my license. I think every other time
the first time you went to get your license, did you get it again?
Yeah, because
no, because sometimes when you renew, you have to retake the test.
Well, just the paper test.
Yeah, just the
you
paper
have to
test.
renew your license.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's how they feel. It's how they. I think it's their polite way of catching people when they get too old.
Yeah,
but you're
so
not
like,
too old. Though.
Sorry, you failed the test. So
that happens here as well. You only renew your license at 60.
If you don't have a certain amount of tickets, they often don't ask you to retake. So if you have like a super clean driving record, you always renew, you always pay your stuff. You can they'll keep giving it back to you every time, as long as there's not like a change. You know, as long as you don't need to go in to be like, well, I can't see out of my left eye now.
Yeah.
Like, as long as you don't need to do something like that, they don't really do anything until you get to a certain age. But if you have a lot of tickets or you're
it's the same
just
here, then,
a reckless human, they'll make you retake it. And I'm a reckless human.
Reckless human. It's Andrew.
So I had to retake it. And so when they told me I had to retake it, I just went online and I grabbed every single test that they give you, found all the answers, memorized all of those, and then went to take the test, because they only swap them out like every so many years, and so it's the same test every time. And
it's
every
like rotating
D&D.
questions, basically.
Yeah, and so all I did was I just memorize all of them and then just go and take the test. The second time I went to take the test in my life, they put you in a little cubby area. So I just brought out my phone and literally just went to all the answers and wrote them in. Like, what a fucking dumb-ass system. And so then I was like, wow, this is really easy. So I went up there, I was like, can I take the motorcycle test too? Because I'll just cheat through that too. And so like, yeah, here you go. And so I went and took the motorcycle test and got that one too. And she was like, wow, did you even study for that? I was like, no, what? No.
I just generally... I found that I could just generally get through the test almost flawlessly, just on intuition of just like what sounds right, and you're mostly fine. But there's like 3 absurd questions that will never come up in your life, and you don't really. And you, in some cases, at least one of them, you're not even sure what they're asking. You're like, what the fuck are you saying in this question?
I was just about to say that there are some questions on there where you're like, did you fucking make this up? I've never seen that before. I don't think that's real. Like. It took me like 5 years into driving before I saw my first roundabout. And I was like, what the fuck's a roundabout? And I saw it and I was like, why the fuck is a roundabout? Do you just go into it? Is it just...
Roundabouts are relatively simple to understand.
Roundabouts are everywhere in Europe. Like, everybody's got a fucking roundabout. It's the goddamn hippest thing to have. The US just has stop signs. We're like, look. Just stop moving. Wait till someone else goes.
They're so less safer, though. It's so much safer to have a roundabout.
Oh,
yeah, stop signs are super dangerous.
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously, but Americans like what they like their systems.
Yeah,
to
for
stay
sure.
the same. But yeah,
it's interesting.
But they'll test you on roundabout knowledge, where it's like, okay, what do you got to do in a roundabout? I don't know. I've never seen a fucking roundabout. What is even a roundabout? And then like.
It's interesting that you say that you can pass the test almost just on common knowledge, because here are tests. So you test here. Of course, different countries in Europe are going to be different, but here in Portugal, you have 2 tests. You have the theoretical test and the practical test. And so the theoretical test is just you sitting down and answering 30 questions. It's like a multiple choice question.
Yeah. The theoretical test is imaginary.
That's not what theoretical means. Oh no, actually. Still, the point is
the hypothetical test.
The common knowledge is that the biggest issue of the first biggest issue of taking that test is that you need to know the names of the signs specifically. Like, for example, the crosswalk sign. What is it actually called? And they're going to ask you on that, and you need to know that.
That's stupid.
Yeah, it's true. It's not as stupid.
That's called trivia.
It's not as stupid as what I'm about to say, which is that you need to know the maximum weights of vehicles, whether they have a trailer, whether they have 2 or 3 axes, how many wheels they have, the maximum lengths. You need to know that. You also need to know the maximum speeds of all types of vehicle, which is, I don't understand why, but anyway, you need to know that, and they will ask you on that as well every once in a while.
That feels like the kind of question that would come up if you were getting a different license.
Yeah,
because it's about basically different vehicles. It's like, well, then that's for the license for that driving the vehicle, which I'm not getting.
Yep, but somehow it still makes it into. I think it's because it's all the same test for everybody except public transport drivers. I think like even motorcycles and like the theoretical test itself, I think is the same for everybody here, and then the practical test is different.
We have different ones because we have a letter system for our licenses. So
we do as well. We do as well.
Yeah. And so if you go into the biggers, like an A class license is a completely different license. So like it asks you questions of like, all right, well, how do you hitch a trailer? You got to know all the steps, like how many, like how many wheels are you allowed to have on a trailer before you need X amount of lights, or like all these questions. You're like, oh, fuck, I don't know. Like I wouldn't know that off the top of my head, but if you want to drive a motorhome in this country, you have to get, I think it's a B license. Or no, I think it's an A license it's a B license. You have to get a bus license. And so they'll ask you questions that are bus related, and you're like, what the fuck? I'm not driving a bus, I'm driving a motorhome. It's like, yeah, but it's the size of a fucking bus. And so you need to like learn all the intricacies of like, well, how do you make a turn? How do you make this kind of turn when you literally are the size of the road? And it's like, I guess I gotta, go in this angle, or I gotta do it's really weird. But
you don't have a practical test though? Like you don't drive a car?
Yeah, you do.
You do. Okay. Yeah.
That's how I got penalized for people cutting him off.
Right, of course. Yeah, I wasn't joining the.
But some licenses you don't have to. So the higher class ones, you don't have to sit in a car with someone to do it, because you need the prerequisite is you need to have a C class license, which is a commercial class, which is the same one that all of us have. So everybody, regular and business. So citizens and business both have C class licenses, which is just to drive a car. And so that's the prerequisite to get an A or B license. So
I think it's the same letters here.
Yeah, and so you can't drive a bus until you have your commercial license. And that is the one that trains you on like, okay, what's a stop sign? You're like, oh shit, that makes stop. Like, they're not going to ask you that question during like the bus exam, because that's stupid. Like, what happens when you go to a stop sign at a bus? You stop the bus. Wow, you're real good at this. Like,
very good.
But yeah, I don't know.
We're so proud of you.
Moral of the story: roundabouts are the best thing, and stop signs are very dangerous.
Roundabouts stress me out.
Roundabouts are okay. I don't think they're that great though.
Think of them as just a one-way street that goes around something, and it's got yield signs on every joining road. It's basically as simple as that.
So
unless you have like the super roundabouts,
I don't trust them.
It's just a one-way road.
I don't trust the drivers though.
Yeah.
That's a different thing.
I've just driven for too long, and I've just seen other drivers, and just for too long I've just seen like, oh wow, everyone's on their phone all the time. Like something that's complicated and like no pause. It's the dialogue choice with no pausing of roads is just terrifying. Specifically, I'll specify 1-lane roundabouts are fucking whatever. It's like, okay, sure.
They're easy.
It's 2 and 3-lane roundabouts where I'm like, I'm going to die because someone else is going to not follow the turn rules, and they're going to be like in the wrong lane for which direction they want to go in, and they're just going to fucking plow into the side of me, or I'm going to end up getting plowed into because I turn when they don't expect me to, even though I'm doing it correctly. And like that trust does not exist. I do not have that trust for drivers. So it's like I do not like that shit. Or it's like I'm in the left lane, so that means that I can go forward or left, and you're in the right lane, which means you can only go forward or right. So that means when we go to the forward direction, I'm going to continue forward out of the roundabout. You better not fucking crash into the side of me. You better also be going forward if you got that far, and not trying to go left from the right lane. And it's like I don't trust it. Like I see accidents all the time in the roundabouts, and it's like I'm just any day now. Here it comes. Someone's gonna just not fucking pay attention to how these work, and that trust is gonna punish me. And you have to you have to trust them
every day, or like
I just see them all
frequently?
the time. Like I just see like, oh look, there's another crash in the roundabout, and I just go around and whatnot. Like I can't trust people. People are too distracted in their driving, and you can't rely on them to know the rules. And roundabouts in particular are really rare, and like
throws a wrench into the works for
Yeah,
sure.
so like people aren't used to them. Like my entire town that I grew up in, I don't know of a single roundabout, period. There was one place where we go to like the local park, like not like a city park, but like a national park that was like between a few of the cities. And if we drove all the way there, one of the back roads randomly had a roundabout, and that was the closest one to where I lived. Was one that was like kind of 2 towns away. Whereas now,
Back road as well.
I live in a place where there's a number of roundabouts just kind of scattered throughout the town. And in one particular street, there's 4 of them in a row. Like that one street, every intersection's roundabouts. And it's just like every single time, it's just like, I don't trust people because they either are, there's a decent chance that they're fucking texting or something while driving, but there's also like a decent chance that they just fundamentally don't understand how to use a roundabout. And that's dangerous. And they're not. It's just, and they're not on the practical test because they're not. Most people can't test roundabouts because there just isn't one around.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
that's the problem I had when I was driving in France, where I was like, wait, how do you use a roundabout? And I was like, I think you just turn. And I learned very quickly that there are very specific rules that you're supposed to follow. And I definitely just full on Americanized it, where I was like, well, I'm gonna go in the furthest lane I want to go into, and then go to the furthest lane I need to go into. It's like, this is not how you use it.
You can get into a crash so fast with that.
Yeah,
so fast.
Like a 1-lane roundabout is so simple, but anything beyond that, there's a trust aspect that's terrifying.
Yeah,
and I've seen some bullshit. I've seen some fucking European bullshit where there's nested roundabouts, and I'm like, fuck
That's
you.
That's the super roundabout in the UK.
Yeah, I saw that. There's like a roundabout, and then around the roundabout, there's like mini roundabouts orbiting it, and I'm like, fuck you. What the fuck?
The problem? You know what the problem is with that roundabout is that they don't all follow the rules of a roundabout.
I fucking hate it. What the fuck is that?
Because when you're in a roundabout, you have right of way.
The whole point of street laws is to have consistent rules. Otherwise, people die.
Apparently, it works very well. People apparently keep telling me that
it can't.
I'm not going in the UK to the UK ever because of that.
I'm never getting on that shit. Oh my fucking god! Oh, the diagram I'm looking at. I hate it.
Do you have a dash cam?
So much. No.
I recommend that you get a dash cam.
I'm not Russian.
I got a dash cam when I got my newest car, and it's not. I say
I'm
newest.
Sorry, are you showing me? Is this like a Typhoon?
Don't forget that it's. They drive on the left, so you're like. Do you see?
Did someone make this on purpose? Who the fuck did this? This is a crime. Who made?
Do you see the center roundabout?
What are
that
these?
That center roundabout
tiny...
doesn't have right of way.
What the fuck are these tiny
if
little
you're
roundabouts?
if you're at home, just Google super roundabout and you more or less get
super roundabout. That's
these nightmares.
This looks even stupider with cars on it. Who the fuck did this?
The one with the cars on it. That photo with the cars on it is not real. That is a classic cars made up. It's not. You can see that a lot of them are just going.
Oh, it's like a display thing because it is the roundabout because you can tell that it's the same.
It is
the same islands exist, just mirrored.
But it's a lie because the middle roundabout doesn't have right of way, so it's like a bad roundabout.
Sorry, can you get stuck in the middle?
No, you just wait a little bit.
So you can get stuck in the middle.
I hate it so much.
I mean, yeah, but you can get stuck in any roundabout.
This thing when one crash happens somewhere, and then it's like, all right, it's shut it down.
No, that's the good thing about this roundabout is that if a crash happens, you can do the like. There's 2 ways of doing going in the same direction because you can always go all the way around the roundabout, or you can take the shorter turn.
Oh, okay. So
that's the good thing about this. Yeah,
the third one you posted. Hold on.
That's a different one though. The third picture.
Yeah, there's one like that in Dubai. I accidentally
also that looks like city skylines.
I accidentally ran it. I accidentally ran into one like that in Dubai, and I was like, okay, I can go. Wait,
no lie, I can't tell you if that's a screenshot of a video game or real life. It's
low resolution.
It's a little low res, and everything looks a little uniform, so I don't trust it.
It's a video game because there's a mouse cursor in the far right side.
Oh, there. It probably is city skylines.
Maybe it's an airplane. Who knows?
No, that's not what airplanes look like.
That's what paper airplanes.
Now
look
I want to
like.
make a super roundabout in like a city builder. Do it in SimCity 2013 so it doesn't work.
I have so many mods in City Skylines. I've been meaning to go back to it. to do like the. Do you know what? Do you know the real detailers in City Skylines? Have you seen?
I've never actually played City Skylines. I think, or I might have
There's
played it
people
once.
who make like actual full scale.
I only know Do Not Eat
cities.
01.
Oh, I don't know that. Do Not Eat.
Yeah,
No idea.
he was in my recommendations
the
video.
YouTube's right.
Yeah,
I don't know him.
he's a City Skylines YouTube channel that also goes into like some political things, and then did a whole breakdown of like why
I know,
Elon Musk's loops thing was just like a terrible idea that could never work.
I've seen. Actually, I think that channel might have been the reason why I got into a rabbit hole of watching people making cities in City Skylines.
No, Do Not Eat's a good channel.
Yep. Yep.
He's like kind of one of those like quietly funny people, where the jokes like sneak up on you subtly, like Gold Vision. Where it's like, oh shit, there's jokes in this video. I wasn't ready for them because you speak like that. It's a trap. I think that's how I sneak up on people sometimes too.
With jokes?
Every now and then I'm just like deadpan, say something completely fucking absurd and don't acknowledge it. So I'm just fucking with people.
It's mostly my life.
There's also sometimes a thing where I'll intentionally mispronounce something like 12 times in a row and just never fix it. And I'm just actively antagonizing people.
Yeah.
God, man, you know what my favorite part of fucking... My favorite part
No,
of fucking
I don't know that.
roads in Dubai.
What is your
that,
favorite
like,
part of fucking?
Yes.
My favorite part of looking at roads in Dubai is that it's so inconsistent. There's just like, yeah, there's roads here. It's like, are there? Kind of. So they're halfway done. I'm like, they're not roads. But they're gonna be roads. Like, don't put them on the roads thing then. I don't want to drive to halfway roads. I'm trying
Well, at least you have some vague direction of where you're going. Just think of the people who don't even have that.
Going around in California, whenever you're in like suburban areas, there's just a lot of road stems where they're just
if you
just like take a turn and then it dead ends after 20 feet with some signs, and it's because they're leaving the stem there basically because one day there might be a housing development there, and it's just like a wasteland.
So here's a really good example.
That happens sometimes here as well, just not a lot, because there's not a whole lot of housing development.
Yeah, Europe's running out of country. It's like
We're also not
full.
We're also not growing in population as much as or at all. The U.S. is growing and is predicted to grow for the rest of the century.
Yeah, and we have a lot of space to put people.
Now with the fires, there's even more. So,
yeah.
Oh, Andrew is still looking at.
No, sorry. Continue. But yeah, those kind of I can't find it, but those kind of loop-de-loops are just dumb. I don't.
He's not a fan of Sonic.
I just don't think you should have.
What do you have against loop-de-loops? The loop-de-loops are the best.
Look, people can barely drive. It's like barely something they can functionally do well. So adding more complexity than just go forward, turn left, right makes me scared, because then I have to start, like Keith says, I have to start adding trust to other people, and that's just not acceptable. I will not do that for drivers. And when you present to me like, hey, look, there's two fucking roundabouts in one roundabout, I'm like, who the fuck is living in the world where people can be trusted to do this? Because I don't live in that same planet.
You should come to Portugal. We have cakes, and I will show you how. I'll show you how to have trust in other drivers. Not that I have trust, but I'll show you how to drive like you do.
When I drove in Europe, the one thing I didn't understand was you're allowed to overtake any car you want. So if you see a truck, you can just overtake it on the far left lane. So you just get on the left lane and overtake the car and go. Yeah. But there's a speed limit. No, sorry, in just a regular street.
I was like don't fucking overtake things in a roundabout. It's already there's already enough going on.
Well, technically you can't overtake in a roundabout.
You have some narrow time windows too.
But
but if you're on the left, it's fine.
So the way you're supposed to use a roundabout, like a big one like this, is if you're getting off on the opposite side of where you got on, you're supposed to go to the innermost of the roundabout. So you go the full way around, and then you slowly progress to the right,
outside.
To the outside.
Yeah.
So like the outside is for people turning immediately, the inside is for people turning the next time, and the inside is for people turning at the third one. Which is why I don't like them, because you have to like do this layer math, and then I have to start trusting people like, you're turning here, right? You're gonna move, and then they don't move. I'm like, you fucking lied. You're supposed to turn here. The third run was where we all get off to go to that exit. So you fucked up. And it's like those. I don't like that. But in any case,
that's how accidents happen. Yeah,
exactly.
That seems like an anger issue. Honestly, you just need to take it cool and know that they are terrible people who don't play turn-based games.
It's just the risk that the cars can be packed tightly enough that like there's a risk of a collision if anyone isn't doing exactly what they're supposed to do.
You just wait for it's fine. You just wait a little bit. If they don't turn, you like slow down a little bit and get behind them.
No.
Know what I mean? No?
Just do your fucking job right.
No, what I mean is don't get pissed at them and don't crash.
Yeah, I'm going to. Do your fucking job right. Don't get in the car if you're not going to drive the car.
The other issue is that if you're spaced in a way that somebody's on your flank, and this is the part where you're supposed to exit, but they're not exiting when they're supposed to, then they could just plow into the side of you.
But that's where that rule about allowing people to overtake you and allowing them to cut you off. That's where that rule comes in, because if you're on the left side on any situation, but inside of a roundabout, and you imagine you're on the innermost lane, and you want to go to the middle one, you can cut them off, and they will need to slow down.
I don't want to explain how they broke the rules while I'm spitting my teeth out.
No, but like people are just people are just sort of
like it's just not not especially safe driving situation to be in.
I think
if everyone's not expertly trained to do it correctly 100% of the time.
Yeah.
People here, they just accept that if you're on the left of them, they will let you by. I think it's just more or less people just know, they just learn that habit, I suppose.
This is a lot of aggressive assholes.
I never see anybody cut me off. I don't even fully understand what cutting off means.
It's infuriating.
Come to America. We'll show you exactly what cutting people off means.
There's been so many fucking times where you take like a covered yield right turn where like everybody else has to stop at the stop sign / traffic light, but if you're turning right, you can just do this covered turn into the right lane, and it's like you have your own lane, and then you merge, and it's all fine. And I'll have somebody crowding behind me so hard where my intention is to take the right yield lane and then cross over to the left lane. But somebody who was behind me in the yield lane will be cutting me off and driving and trying like aggressively trying to drive around me into the left lane and honking when I quote unquote cut them off. And it's like, I was in front of you and we were in the same lane together. You fucking get to pick what lane I'm going into first. I'm ahead of you. What the fuck are you trying to like speed around me and shit? Like I've had so many almost crashes because somebody like rages into that aggro lane and I'm like, what are you doing? What the fuck are you doing?
I think I know what the problem is.
What is this fucking artificial ass problem we're creating today?
That can only happen because your roads are so big that you have room to overtake almost inside the same lane. That never happens here. You never do that. You can never like overtake in the middle. If you're stopped, like there's no going around. There's like it's
people are just so aggro. Like on the freeways, if things are even slightly slowed down, you always have that one irritating, probably red car that changes lanes like three times per second and is cutting everybody off. And like you keep seeing people slamming on the brakes and honking and stuff because they're just so fucking aggro. And despite all their fucking efforts to get ahead of everyone, you see them just slowly disappear on the horizon behind you because all of their fucking fighting is actually making them have negative progress forward, but you see it every time, and it's like I fucking hate people so much.
My favorite is my favorite are the people who would drive off the road. They'll go into the side lane and just take off and hope that a cop doesn't catch them.
Oh yeah, like when we used to go to our high school and there was that horrible traffic situation where all the buses would sit in traffic for like an hour and we'd be late to our first class because the roads were so bad. And there'd always be the guy who just fucking drives off the road and drives forward on the shoulder. And like 50% of the time they'd be immediately followed by a police officer that's also driving on the shoulder after them. And it's just like
Well, that'll teach the kids. Probably.
American roads are a nightmare, in part because Americans are assholes, and in part because every single city is undergoing some kind of construction or maintenance at all times, or the roads are changing, or the roads are being redone, or something, and half of them are poorly thought out and don't work in their current form anyway. So it's just a constant bad. Like, there's so many deadlock moments throughout the day in every city, and there's just so many messes, and it's like I've never even lived in big cities, and it's always just like, yep, this whole part of the town just kind of shuts down for like an hour around 4:30 when everyone gets out of work. And it's like you just kind of have to live through it.
We spend a lot of time paying a lot of money to fix a to upkeep a mistake. Is how roads in America work. Is that we fucked up once and we can't do anything about it now because that would cost a lot of money. So
you
it's
don't
cheaper.
pay that much money. Most of it goes to the military.
A huge majority of our state budget is for fucking roads. At least in California, we pay a huge amount of money.
Well, there's a lot of propositions where they claim they're going to do roads, and then it gets like repurposed for other things.
Well, yeah, because
the roads are always the promise because it's the obvious problem.
Yeah,
I will fix your crap that you have to go through every day.
Your earmarks.
It would be cheap. It's cheaper just to build more houses and then more mistake roads and then
forever
complain about
to build more houses, but then there's still the homelessness. And
it's some weird stuff. Like at the old house, we needed a computer part, so I drove to the street outside of our street and then just stayed on that street for 3 cities, and then I arrived at Fry's Electronics. It's like, oh my fucking god, it's just one street, just goes forever. It's not even a freeway or a highway. Yep. What is the design of places?
Yeah, that
happens here as well, I suppose. It's just not
that city is built like somebody had a fucking aneurysm drawing on a piece of paper. So, like
I think in the street it's not my street, but it's like the main street of my town. If I go north, I'll go straight to the outside of the country, just the same street. And if I go south, I go to the capital on the same street because it's just like a main road, but it's not really like a highway. It's just sort of a main road. I think isn't that normal though?
I think there was hold on, is there
for one street to be connected all throughout?
If I'm thinking correctly, I think Sacramento has like a really, really fucking dumb freeway. Hold on, I think I'm right. I think there's a dumb fucking freeway that you know how, like, have you ever seen, I don't know how it is, I can't remember how it is in Europe, but you have like the giant sign for a building, like McDonald's has a giant fucking McDonald's sign standing up so everyone can see it when you're driving past. There's
road sign?
No, not a road sign.
No, like a billboard.
I guess a billboard.
Yeah.
Like a version of a billboard that's shaped weird. It's like the logo. It's like the logo tower.
So we have. So Sacramento has one of those. It has a beautiful IKEA.
Sacramento, California.
It has a giant IKEA and Walmart. They're super big. They have these huge signs you can see while you're driving past them on the freeway that say, "Come, like IKEA's here," and you go, "Awesome! I want to go to IKEA." Oh, you can't get there on this road.
Wait, what? They advertise it and you can't exit?
Yeah, you can't exit the fucking freeway to get to IKEA from the road that it's advertising the IKEA on. Why would you make that? Like,
that doesn't make any sense.
You just put it on.
No shit.
I'm just imagining they put it on the exit after the one that you would take, so it's just you could have gone here, but you already fucked up, just to make you feel, just to make you just shit on your day.
But you can get onto the freeway from where that IKEA sign is.
Oh, so it's that doesn't. Oh.
What a mess.
You can get from the IKEA onto the freeway, but you can't get off the freeway.
It's basically a sign saying,
"Are you sure you don't want to make a U-turn on the on-ramp to go back to IKEA?"
It's such a weird.
There'll only be 4 deaths.
That's why I say it's like I don't.
You could get the Mjolnir shelf.
I don't trust big city roads.
That's the best shelf.
They're just built like shit. I don't know.
I have multiple IKEA things in this room.
I have a lot as well. I have my chair.
My big shelf grid with all the books in it is the Kallax.
All of my my shelves are IKEA.
I don't remember what the other ones were called.
Only my TV stand.
It's a convenient store, except for the fact that it's not common. So tracking down the local IKEA is a trek usually.
It's weird. I have the one IKEA furniture I have. Actually, all of my furniture.
Like one of the closest IKEAs is still me just driving all the way back to Sacramento.
Wait, what? That can't be. That can't be fucking true.
There just aren't that many IKEAs.
There's no way that's the closest one to
they
you.
need so much space.
Yeah,
really?
but yeah, they do need a lot of fucking space.
They have like a local community around each IKEA that's like a bunch of partnered stores that tend to be around an IKEA, and there's a huge it has its own neighborhood with its own custom made roads that are just to house the IKEA better. And
holy shit, the closest
but they're super rare.
I mean, I know they're like that,
Sacramento?
but why would that be an impediment?
It's just a lot.
There's not a lot of.
And like the IKEAs are just like expensive as a concept too, so it's like you pretty much just need to like, you more or less just need to like, choose accordingly. There's 3 of them in Los Angeles apparently though. There's like 3 in LA, 2 around San Francisco, and 1 in Sacramento, and that's most of California covered for IKEA. If you live in any other part of the country, I mean, in any other part of California, which California itself is the size of England, you better be able to get to one of those 3 locations. San Francisco, Sacramento, and Los Angeles. And I'll remind you, Sacramento and San Francisco are right next to each other on the map.
And it's a state of 40 million people.
Yeah, and there's like 4,
it has as many IKEAs as Portugal.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's an
There's
European
like 7
thing
IKEAs,
as well.
4 of which are in one city.
Yeah,
Nevada has
because it's European, most likely.
Going by this map, I know that Google has like a maximum range where they stop reporting stuff usually, but Nevada looks like it has 1. And it's in Los Angeles. It's in Las Vegas. So if you're in Reno, you're fucked. You have to drive to Sacramento, California.
Sacramento, California.
Sacramento, California.
Where is that from?
It's in Wasteland 3.
Oh.
There's just a character with, I won't spoil anything else about him, but for some reason he has a voiced line that even happens during combat where he just keeps saying, Sacramento, California. And we're like, I don't understand what's happening. Why is he saying that? Why does he keep saying that? Like Andrew was
like a threat.
Yeah, because Andrew's in that area. So it's like, they found me.
So weird.
It's so fucking strange.
Also, I
haven't
cannot
seen that
believe
yet.
that technically the Sacramento IKEA is closer to you by like a couple miles.
Yeah, no, I'm fucked.
That's ridiculous.
I have to drive to either Sacramento or San Francisco, so whenever I have an IKEA thing I'm planning, it just has to be like while I'm doing something else.
Why isn't
like I went to an escape room for my birthday last year, and that's when I picked up my big blimp light shaped thing because I wanted that, but it had to be during a different trip. It's like a weird like origami looking folded like light tower. Just have like a lamp in my corner because it's fun to look at. And it was only like $30 or something.
All of it's weird. I only have 1 piece of furniture from IKEA, but all the rest of my furniture is made of the same black wood material.
Yeah.
Oh, that's normal.
It's also often noticeably shittier.
Yeah. Well, I don't. I have a problem. I really like the color black, so everything in my house is black.
And you get your black electronics on your black shelves.
But that's good because then you can highlight it with any color that you're feeling like it. So if you're feeling like orange and black, you can make it
for example, half your walls were red and half your walls were pink in your room.
Yeah, exactly.
Pink is just red. That's just red.
Pink is just red with extra steps.
Yeah, pink is just it's the pastel version of red.
We should really get around to this question.
Oh yeah, we have a question.
Do we have a question?
Yeah, we have a few different questions, but the one we were talking about doing today was this one. Daniel Leahy asks, do any of you have an opinion on Nintendo making Mario 3D All-Stars only available for purchase until March? What reason do you think could give a good reason to do something like that? Glad to have you putting out another podcast. Looking forward to it.
Capitalism is the reason. There we go.
I'm hoping that the real, like, I don't know. The frustrating thing is that I tried Googling it before, and I don't know if any new information's come out since. But for those that don't know, Nintendo made a Mario 3D All-Stars, which is Mario 64, Super Mario Sunshine, and Mario Galaxy. So it's like 3 different generations of 3D Mario games, and like a weird Battle Royale download game all in one bundle. And so it's like, oh, cool, I get these games. That's nice. But then weirdly, it's like only available until March. And you're like, the fuck did you say? What are you even talking about? It's like, why are you saying like while supplies last about a fucking downloadable game? So I tried Googling around and trying to get any clarification because what this nonsense is. And I couldn't find any, but it's been like a few weeks. So maybe info's come out since. But I'm hoping that it's just a matter of like this bundle only exists until March, and then they'll just be available individually for like $20 each or whatever the fuck online after that. I'm hoping that's what they mean.
Makes sense.
And for whatever reason, the weird Battle Royale thing is only playable until March, it says, which I'm like, what does that mean? So maybe that's why, because they're taking away the free to play thing, and they're just demoing it for a few months as part of this bundle. So maybe that game gets discontinued, and then the bundle goes away. But then they launch all 3 games as individual downloads at that point. I don't know why the fuck you would port 3 old games temporarily to your new console when you own them. I'm really confused.
Regardless of what happens after March, there's one result that ends from this: is people buying more Nintendo Switches.
It's a fucking Disney Vault thing. Like, what the fuck?
Like the thing is, if you're planning on buying a Nintendo Switch, and if you want these games, and if you want to make sure that you're going to get these games, then you buy the Nintendo Switch in this holiday season.
Do you think they're just doing this as like a FOMO exploit?
Yeah, for sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe like your hopes are going to come to fruition, and they're going to allow the sale of the games independently after. Hopefully that is the case. But even if that is the case, they are not clarifying it, so they're doing it on purpose.
It's so fucking strange.
Yeah. It's not the first time that... I mean, if you look at games like Fortnite and even Blizzard's Overwatch and stuff, they
all have FOMO store mechanics, but that's within a game at least.
Yeah, it's not the whole game.
Yeah, having the whole game be FOMO is just fucking weird. Because, I've talked about, like, I hate that about, like, Fortnite has a rotating store where the individual items are, like, it's only available for 2 days, and who knows if it'll ever come back. You better have an impulse buy right now or you buy it, haha. And then you have I saw that Fall Guys had that, too, so I'm like, I'm done looking at this store forever. Goodbye. And then, Blizzard has that not only with skins and costumes and whatnot, but also, like, entire game modes just vanish if you don't play them during the correct week or something. Although I recently found that you can make a custom game and you can go down this one obscure drop down menu to launch like Franken-Junkenstein or whatever the hell, and it's all there year round technically. You just need to make a whole lobby because there's no matchmaking. So technically that part that I thought was FOMO isn't anymore. You just have to have a group that wants to play Junkenstein today.
That sort of specifically in the microtransactions stores, that sort of practice is absolutely predatory because it specifically targets people who are either they have mental issues of gambling addiction or just because there's some people who just get bothered more by not having the stuff that they want or fear. The fear of missing out affects different people differently.
Or just the part of you that like you're on the fence on whether or not you want it, but if it's going away, then like, well, now you really like, you kind of really especially want it because like otherwise you're denied it forever. And so it's like, well, I should probably just get it just in case, right? Like, I've fallen victim to this to some extent in a weird, stupid way, which is that like I saw because I was reading and watching Beastars, and this is another topic that you guys are familiar with a little bit, this story, but for the audience, I was reading and watching Beastars a bit, and I was like, I like this, and I just randomly saw that there was this Legoshi like statue. It's just like this chill little statue, and it's like, oh,
it's a figurine. Come on, proper names.
It's a statue.
I'm kidding.
What's the difference between a figurine and it's not an action figure? It doesn't move. So it's
a
so it's like statues fitting enough at least. It's just Legoshi crouching on like a brick wall or something, and it's just like a really pleasant looking like sculpture. And I'm like, oh, I kind of want that, but maybe not. And so I kind of just like looked at it and then didn't get it, and then looked at it again and didn't get it, and it just kind of time passed. But little did I know that like the fucking anime statues like are like a pre-order system where you pre-order them and then they vanish from existence basically, and you'll never get them again. Like anime statues are brutal apparently. So I'm just kind of like sitting there in the regret of like, oh, I kind of wanted that. It's just kind of nice to just have around, and like anything that gives any kind of positive feeling in 2020 is like kind of like something I'm clinging to. So the fact that it just was gone, and I'm like, and I couldn't buy it in any store because it sold out universally in Europe, Japan, and the United States, and the only people selling it on eBay are like, hey, this will be $400, please. I'm like, no. But like, it's like, because I missed my chance and like the FOMO aspect takes place, it's like I'm ruined. Like I have the SKU in a text file, and every now and then, like every few weeks, I'll just like Google the SKU to see if like a new listing came up somewhere, because the fact that there's a thing I kind of wanted and it's gone and I can't get it again is really frustrating in a unique way that it wouldn't be if it was just like a thing that I like for example, like there was a Geralt of Rivia statue that I was like, maybe I want that, maybe I don't, and I never got it. But it's like it's still around out there somewhere if I really wanted it, but I don't, maybe, and so I just don't get, and I never got around to buying it. But the fact that the Legoshi statue is specifically vanished from existence and I can't get it makes me want it way more in a really frustrating way. But I'm not.
And
paying
it looked really
$400.
cool as well.
Yeah, it's really detailed. It's really good. But I'm not paying $400 for it.
Yeah.
And so the follow-up story here is that I saw it listed for $30 on eBay, and I didn't have an eBay account, but I made an eBay account just to get this Legoshi statue on eBay, because I'm like, I don't know what the story is here, but I looked at eBay and it has like anti-fraud policies and whatnot, so like they must just actually be selling this statue. I'm like, I don't know if they stole it or like they're an illegitimate seller. Like I don't know how they have it, but I'm like, I think I'm gonna buy this. Like it's only $30. Like what is there to lose? $30 and like free shipping. So I ordered it, and it arrived like 2 or 3 weeks later. And you guys are now familiar with this part of the story because I shared it in the Discord. But it looks like it's a strange product because it looks just like it in silhouette. But when you look closer, all of the 3D details of its cast are like lower resolution, basically. It's like a blurry version of it. But what's way worse than the actual casting of the mold is that the paint job is horrible. The paint job is incredibly low quality, and it looked like I took to calling it Ditto Legoshi because it looks like the Ditto from Pokemon that can't do faces correctly transformed into Legoshi, and just did a really shitty version of him. And it's like it's explicitly like it's just a Chinese knockoff. Like it's a shitty low quality product that's trying to con you by having you buy this other product that you wanted, and it's pretending to be that one. And like that's just mess. That's a mess. And I think it was it was either a Twitter user or Bird or Andrew, I think, said that it looks like the that stuff they use on cake to do like shapes and stuff. What's it called?
I don't know.
Are you here, Andrew?
Yeah, for which one?
Yeah, do you know what do they call the cake stuff that's like that doesn't taste amazing, but they can use it to make shapes and it looks plasticky?
Shit, it's the sugar stuff. It's it's literally just physical sugar. That's all it is. Like you can turn it into anything you want it to look like, but it's nothing but full sugar.
I'm thinking of the word I'm thinking of like Fontaine, but that's the villain from that's the guy from BioShock.
It's kind of funny if I look up Beastar's Legoshi,
Fondue,
it's the second
Fontaine.
picture. That figurine is the second picture. So you probably will get it.
What do you call the cake stuff? Sugar shaping.
Moldy shapes.
Help me, Google. Fondant. There we go. That's why I was thinking of fontaine.
Yep.
Yeah. It's like somebody was just saying that it looked like Legoshi made of fondant. Like it was like a cake topping made of cake, basically, which would be impressive if it was.
Painted in the same way as well, kind of.
And I'm in the camp where it's like, these people, they could have just sold it legitimately. Like they could have just had pictures of the product they were selling and been like, yeah, we know what we are. We're the shitty, we're the shitty knockoff of that statue you want. But hey, it's only $30 and it's actually available. And then it would just be a legitimate product that people would potentially buy because, you know, if they're just honest about what it looks like. But no, the eBay listing for the product, and they're still doing it, I think. It just shows the real product. And then that's not what you receive. You receive their shitty, like made at home, like a homemade knockoff version of it. That's way worse and like you. So you as a buyer, you're like, oh man, I'm getting like a bargain. Maybe it's like a secondhand one that someone's reselling or something because it says it doesn't have a box and stuff like that.
Yep,
but instead it's like shitty garbage, and you're like, wait, you can't do that. You're not allowed to do that. So I went through this whole thing where it's like I was trying to deal with eBay's stuff because it's against the rules to like receive a product that does not look like the thing that you bought. Like they can't just ship you something else like that. But despite being against the rules, there's no consistent fraud reporting system. In part, there's one particular page that lets you report fraud, but they specifically say that you will not hear about what the results of this were, which sounds a whole lot to me like not getting a fucking refund. So I reported the person for fraud, which they don't know I'm doing because it's like the whole behind the scenes secret thing. But then I also leave them a negative review, and then they freak out, and they freak out, and they
join two and two together.
They're like, you gave us a negative review without consulting us first, because you're supposed to consult people first. But it's like, yeah, you're supposed to not knowingly defraud me too. So like, you knew you're not sending me the thing in the picture. So what the fuck? It's like, oh, how could you give me a negative review on my con item? I'm like, you didn't warn me you were conning me. And so I bargained with them, and they gave me a full refund and let me keep the statue if I remove the negative review. And I'm like,
see, that's the thing, is that you're not supposed to do that.
And that's the thing, is I don't like them getting away with it, but also eBay explicitly is not going to help me. Because they literally said, I will not hear the results of this thing, which means I'm not going to get a refund, because that would be confirming that what would happen in the end. So eBay doesn't help you in cases of fraud. They don't have a system in place. At best, they might punish them, but if they're not going to refund me, then I'm not getting helped, and so that's not effective. It's a shitty system. So I did what I had to do to get my money back, because at the end of the day, I'm like, eBay doesn't have my back, so fuck them.
Yeah, and it's really tough because you can tell, like, if you type in B-Star's Legoshi statue into eBay, it is the same fucking, just the same listing from seven different people.
Yeah,
and so
like 5 of them are like $400, and like 10 of them are like $30, and they all are using the same pictures, but all those $30 ones are not that product. They are definitely trying to con you and hoping that they get away with it. And it's like,
if you go into the feedback profile and you go to like, oh, what are the negative ones? The item is fake. This is not the right item. And it's like different. They're selling like different action figures, and it's just the same issue.
Yeah, and eBay just doesn't punish any of these people, apparently. No. Like, they're just not actually policing any of this. So it's at some point, I'm just like, well, fuck them. If you're not going to moderate this shit, then I'm not going to like stick my neck out for you and your shitty store that you're not moderating and be like, oh, I'll take one for the team. It's like, no, I want my money back.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is
fuck that guy.
Is that like it's it's like any scam where you have to hope that the small percentage of people who don't do anything about it because whatever, it's $30, my fault. Like, you're just trying to bank money on those people.
It's like, nah, bro, I'm self-employed. I can Karen all day.
Yeah, exactly.
You caught the wrong person.
Amazon's getting into that territory right now too. Amazon's having a huge issue with fake products being delivered. Do you want
Staples, or do you want a picture of Staples?
So it's like, there are people who are Yeah, people are getting like bed sheets or something. They'll get bed sheets they order that are cotton, and they get them, and they're like, "This isn't cotton. Like this is literally you say it's cotton, and all the product, all the things on this say it's cotton, and you take it out, you're like, this isn't cotton. What happened?"
Colonel has posted this adorable picture of like a crocheted Legoshi,
which is probably worth $30 more than the whatever Keith got.
I mean, someone put work into that.
Yeah. Keith is like
that's fucking handmade. This is just like the one I got was just like a shitty like that somebody has like a cast that either is the official cast of the statue or something that's just like a 3D printed similar approximation, and they're just like doing cheaper molds out of it and then just kind of getting whoever they have on hand to try to paint it, and it's like it's not good.
The thing is, the figurine that you want is like an official one. It comes with a box and stuff if you look for pictures.
Yeah, any nice looking figure is always going to be over $100, even pre-owned.
Yeah.
Unless
and I have some for $250.
I was willing to pay the real price. You just can't get it.
Yeah.
I was keeping it. I literally I write stuff. Anime had a release date. So I put that on my calendar, and I was like, I'm going to check their website when the release date comes around. But then it was like, no, that was only the release date if you already pre-ordered it 3 months ago. I'm like, oh, fuck. Because the pre-orders were closed the whole time. It's like, it's fucking hard. It's weirdly hard.
Yeah.
And they're making a Lewis statue, but I don't like Lewis, and it looks not good.
Don't like
Is Lewis the one with
deer.
the horns?
Yeah, Lewis is the deer. There's a statue of him sitting on a chair and looking smug, and I'm like, that's not fun.
Limited edition statues are the only place you should pre-order things.
Yeah, because it's literally we're making this many, and they want to ensure that they're selling them, so they make them to order to some extent, I think, too.
Yeah, that's mostly it.
It makes them very hard to just buy.
Yeah, we're not in the... It's one of those things, too, where, again, like, if you are in Japan, you can go to a pre-owned shop, and they just have them sitting right there in cases, and you can just pick the one you want. And this, it's like, this is so easy to do in the country where this is a thing that people buy these
where
in.
they come from.
But but when you when you go to like the US and no one really buys anime figures here in that much of a market, there's no pre-owned market. It's like video games. There used to be like a lot of pre-owned video game shops, and then they all started going away the moment that wasn't a thing people bought anymore. People didn't like buy physical games anymore. They just buy them digitally. Like GameStop
they still
barely
did that
holds on.
For consoles though. There's still a lot of. But
that's the thing is like, so the market isn't big enough that you can reasonably run your own store with it. GameStop only can exist because it has so much debt that it's kind of just it's like it's in a company. GameStop
still exists.
It does, and it's about to run out of money. They're very close to just.
How exciting!
No, not exciting, but how are they still on? Oh, that's right, because when COVID started, they were like abusing their employers again or something. I remember hearing about that.
That was the thing. They're like the first people to like make sure their people went back to work, they tried to stay open like well beyond closing orders.
They said they were an essential service because they provide entertainment.
And it's like, no.
Yeah, but GameStop
you could just run your shit like Amazon.
Yeah,
you can buy them online. That's not essential.
Well, that's the thing though. GameStop has storefronts, and they need you to go to the storefronts because that's like all the money they've invested is into these storefronts.
And that's how they upsell you on everything.
Exactly.
Why do people do that still though? It's kind of
go to the store.
Go to GameStop. Yeah.
Well, people go to GameStop because they're.
Is it all old ladies buying stuff for their grandsons?
So it's multiple reasons. Some people can't. Some people don't have the option to buy things online.
Oh, the internet infrastructure in the US. That's right.
Yeah, they don't have a credit card, or they don't have a bank card. They only have like cash, and they just want to go buy a thing.
Or their internet sucks.
That's
no.
Well, look, if your internet sucks, you could probably use your phone. And using your phone, it doesn't cost much data to look up a product on a. Oh no,
I'm thinking.
I hate using websites like that on my phone, though. It's always such a pain in the ass.
What I'm saying is, it's very difficult for people with bad internet to buy all their games online. because
guess,
they're enormous. Did you see the news about the new Call of Duty something or other being more than 250 gigs?
Yeah.
That's just ridiculous.
Wow.
Is
it because it's shipping with a battle royale?
Yeah.
That must be
I bet
why,
they're just
right?
copy pasting
Like
the
just
same
another
file.
giant map.
So it's
Like
so
I can only see that happening. I mean, it shouldn't happen ever, but I can only see it happening if they have like an entire single player campaign and a giant battle royale continent map and a multiplayer mode.
Yes, that's the
All
thing.
in
Is
one
that
thing.
it's 250. So it's
It
like
still
the Halo
shouldn't be that
Master
big
Chief.
though. Jesus Christ.
No, but what they did is they broke it up into like the Master Chief Collection style, where you pick and choose what things you want installed. You don't have to like flat out install 250 gigabytes to play Call of Duty.
Right.
You install the base game, which is like 50 gigs, and then it goes, okay, cool. So you can play single player. You go, okay, well, I want to play with friends.
That should
All
not
right,
be
well,
the base game because that's not the popular thing.
Nobody cares. Yeah.
Well, yeah. So then it says, all right, well, hold up a minute. Let me go install. I think it's like 10, 15 gigs of like multiplayer stuff. Then you download that on top of that. Okay, now you're set. And then you go, well, I want to play these specific things. So there's two multiplayer. There's PvP and there's PvE. And if you want to play PvE, then you need to install another 30 gigabytes of files because it installs the entire Warzone map, basically. Because there's like the PvE stuff just takes place on the Warzone map or on the Battle Royale map. And then if you want to do the Battle Royale, then it's like, okay, here's another. The PvE and the Battle Royale are the same map stuff you have to download. And so that's the like 20 gigs. And so in total, if you want the whole game installed, it's going to be over, it's like over 250 gigs. But it's fun to install. Trust me.
I don't. Yeah. Well, if you have a gigabit network, that's or gigabit connection to the internet,
Wow, must
that's
be
probably
nice.
like an hour of download.
That's still too much time for a game that doesn't look that good.
The game, it does look bad, doesn't it? It's sort of weird.
Yeah. Call of Duty is a very ugly franchise.
Yeah,
Its art direction is
FPS
too
games look
bankrupt,
like
so
shit.
everything looks like a weird brown sludge. So it's So we playing like the Black Ops 4 Battle Royale, and it's like, why is my computer is like kind of chugging, and the fan is like aggro, and my frame rate isn't where it should be, all in service of like a not great screen of visuals. It's like kind of muddy and brownish, and it just doesn't pop. So it's like, why are you wasting so many resources? Like Overwatch on low looks better because it's like it has the art direction to do cool stuff with it instead of just tax everything.
Yeah.
And even with all those graphics, I still can't tell what the fuck a gun someone's holding because everything looks so fucking hyper realistic that the guns are like,
every enemy is just a vaguely blackish splotch. So it's like, what are these visuals even conveying?
yeah, like what is the point? Like, wow, that I can see that billboard. I can read it says you're a fucking idiot for buying this game. I'm so glad it's in HD. I'm just
it's not free to play?
No, what? The Warzone is, but not like the game. Not like the base game.
Yeah.
I'm saying like, but you're still installing like 100 something gigabytes just for the fucking game. And it's like, why? That none of this looks good. I don't know what like who you're like. Even Doom looks better than this. Doom at least has an interesting art. Well, yeah, but it still doesn't justify it being like, I think it's almost 80 gigs. It's like,
is it very heavy?
Oh my god.
Yeah, Eternal is stupidly large. It's like, why?
I think it's because of the textures for 4K or for 8K rather.
It's because some jackass is spending more time making things than compressing things, and you need to learn how to compress your fucking files. Because I'm not doing this shit no more. I'm not
for textures. It's kind of complicated because I think textures
then invest the money to make it not complicated. It shouldn't be the consumer's fault for you not investing money into making less shitty products.
They should just allow you to. If you have a 1080p screen, you don't need super big textures. They should just download the textures for the game for the computer that you have. Because the problem, I'm not sure about this, but I think the problem with textures, if you're using them for decal calculation and a bunch of other stuff, like for example bullet holes and stuff, is that they cannot be compressed like a JPEG. They need to be lossless, so they need to be like a PNG or a RAW file.
Yeah. I was going to say, like, there's an aspect of both visuals and audio, I think, where if you have them in an uncompressed form, they load faster and work faster, but it means massive files.
For audio, there's less of an issue there because there's not a whole lot of loss.
That was the issue with the European version of God of War 3. If you got God of War 3 in Europe, they needed to ship on multiple Blu-rays because that was what the other languages were.
Oh.
Because they had the whole game voiced in several different languages, so you needed a second Blu-ray in case your languages were on that one.
Audio does take a lot of space in comparison. I mean,
I would love to see a comparison of the load time between Doom with compressed graphics and Doom without compressed graphics on a typical gaming PC.
I'm not saying the load time. So what I'm saying is, like, if you're the problem is that because the textures need to be expanded sometimes and repeated in certain ways, the compression sometimes creates bugs in the game that cannot be.
But that's like one thing.
Yeah, it's not. It's I think that what I'm saying is it's the reason why they don't compress textures into JPEGs anymore. They used to do that. Some games probably still do. But if you're going to do like all the different layers like parallax and bump maps, of course they're way beyond parallax and bump maps, but because there's a bunch of technologies now. But if you're using all those techniques and technologies over the texture, you need it to be as pixel perfect as possible to avoid bugs and weird things. Because, we've all seen a JPEG compression artifact, right?
Yeah, but there are things where you can get away with that.
Don't you mean proof that the moon's fake?
Because there's a JPEG artifact on it?
Well...
Oh, I've seen that! Oh my god, people are so dumb.
There's a JPEG artifact on the device they're recording the moon
yes,
with.
I've seen
the
that.
thing that's literally outside of the fucking Earth's atmosphere.
I haven't told that story before on a podcast or anything. That we were... I've been getting... Stephanie into like H-Bomber Guy and Philosophy Tube and ContraPoints and so on.
From Philosophy Tube is so good.
It was really funny. Is actually I literally heard I could hear Goodbye Dr. P from the other room yesterday. I was like just really amused by that. We watched the Flat Earth video by H-Bomber Guy, and specifically there was this asshole that has this custom printed shirt, and it's got like is this the moon? Is this a lunar lander or a homeless tweaker shelter? It's like a really wordy, inconvenient conspiracy shirt, and it's the worst, and it makes no sense. And it's just, but he's just a smug asshole that keeps accosting. He's always accosting people in the street about like the moon landing being fake and so on. And what's fucking agony is that where there's this creeping sense of familiarity that happens during the video where you're watching these videos and he's like accosting people at a mall and we're like, that looks familiar, but it's a mall. Like I bet a lot of malls look really similar, so that's not a big deal. But then he's at like a coffee shop and he's getting thrown out by the owner, and Stephanie's like, "That's the Queen Bee. That's the Queen Bee." And it's like literally one specific coffee shop that is not a chain that is in town that she knows. It's like, no, he's here. The Flat Earther guy is here because he's getting thrown out of this poor establishment that is a mom and pop shop. Like it's a one-off store, so it's just that one. It's like, oh no, he's here, fucking kill me. Of all of the world, he's in this town in that shitty video.
I have had limited success in convincing. It's not really convincing, but sort of shifting the perspective of people. Flat earthers, the moon landing skeptics.
Yeah.
I've had limited success asking them how they think the vast majority, 99.9% of scientists all around the world agree that the moon landing wasn't faked, and how they can combine that with them believing that the moon landing is fake.
Yeah, how they reconcile that.
Reconcile, that's the word. Because if you ask them, how could they convince everybody to keep it hush hush? Like they can come up with the ideas. I'm sure they didn't come up with the moon landing conspiracy theory by themselves, so they know all the tropes. But if you force them to go to the root of the issue of why people believe it's fake, which is that they don't believe scientists and don't believe science, if you show them that's, sort of, you're not directly showing them that's the root, but you're sort of poking at the wound. If you ask that, I've seen on a couple of people, one of them, very close friend of mine, that I've seen their eyes be like, and they sort of dropped the issue. Well, both those times, anyway, they dropped the issue. And it's sort of like, I haven't talked about that with them since, but because that's the issue. Like people don't, or moon landing skeptics. It's at the root of it is just anti-science and anti.
Yeah, it's up there with being an anti-vaxxer, an anti-mask, and so on. It's just you've decided to not take scientific consensus as being a thing that matters, and you're just like, I just know better because reasons.
And I'm sure, there's a lot of reasons why they think that, but it's, of course, the reasons are bollocks because they're bad reasons, but the reasons are there. It's just the fundamental impetus behind disagreeing, I think, is all there. It's all
just among 500 other reasons why it's dumb. You don't think that Russian scientists would have refuted it by now if it was all a hoax the entire time? It's like, oh yeah,
well,
the space race we lost in, they actually faked it. They were pretend astronauts. It's like, what?
Yeah, because Russia and the United States are working together.
They were working together to fuck themselves.
Well, they were working together to try to trick the mass population.
For fun?
So
two countries that never work together?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. They've always been working together. They just pretend they're not working together to try to trick all of us into giving away. The point is that you can keep and sow a conspiracy theory forever.
Yeah, you can
come up with every.
If you've already broken all suspension of disbelief, you can just keep expanding that bubble infinitely.
No, yeah.
There's no I don't. If someone says the moon landing wasn't real, okay, fine. I don't give a shit.
It tells you something about that person, though.
Yeah, but I don't have to.
And actually, every Russian president or whatever the leaders are called was actually just one vampire changing his makeup every 50 years.
I mean, I would believe that. Actually, that is actually a believable thing. I could.
It's more believable than the moon landing being faked.
Yeah, I mean, it is more believable than the moon landing being fake.
Actually, you know what?
I just don't.
I wouldn't say more, but I would say as believable. Honestly.
My reply is if you think the moon landing's fake, go tell that to Neil Armstrong.
He'll punch you in the face.
Exactly.
He's in it on the line.
I love it. Just go tell the guy who went to the moon that it was fake, so he can punch you in the face, and then you can feel what it's like to get punched in the face by the guy who walked on the moon. And
you don't even need to do that. You just need to point a laser to the freaking moon. There's reflectors up there that are used for GPS satellite or.
Oh my god.
Here's a better question.
The planet that blows up in Star Wars is just named after Buzz Aldrin.
Here's a better question.
I just realized. I'm like, wait.
What changes? What changes if it's true or not?
Oh, that's a really meaty question. Because it does change, though.
What changes anything about the moon landing being fake or real? The moon is still there. It's not like a lie. The moon is fucking there.
It gives them a reason to doubt the purported
does it? Because they already doubt the purported explanations.
Buzz Aldrin's still alive. Good for him. He's 90.
But they doubt,
he went to the moon. He found the secrets.
They doubt the purported explanations because they it's what you're saying is that it goes the other way around. They have a worldview that I don't know. There was this character in Disco Elysium. There was this. Where was it? Oh, that lady, the doomed commercial area lady. Do you remember that, Keith? The one with the magic talisman thing.
Yeah, the guy that's putting shrines on the wall because he thinks that someone's going to come after them.
She was convinced that the reason all these businesses were going down and failing was because there was some magic going on, and then she couldn't see it because just normal capitalism at work, and she thought it was doomed. It was doomed.
That's part of the incentive to believe these crazy conspiracies. Yeah, is that it's a more satisfying narrative than capitalism bad, which is often what's going on in a lot of these stories. Like a lot of people, a lot of the bad things that happen in the world happen for really boring reasons,
and also really nonsensical reasons. Like
you also don't feel empowered to fight it the way that you kind of feel empowered to fight a conspiracy.
So it's a lot easier for people to believe.
If you're the one guy that knows the truth, then it's like you're the protagonist of movies.
Are you?
And that's more seductive of a narrative than all of the real reasons bad things happen.
Just think of I like to think of climate change as a good example for this particular issue, because think of the reasons behind.
Well, that's also just wishful thinking. In climate change's case, if you just don't believe in it, then you're happier.
No, but
because your world is better because it's not happening, and you just
unless it's happening to
my
you.
ears. I can't hear you.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, if the moon landing is fake, it doesn't change anything about the world we live in right now.
Yeah, it's because people believe in conspiracies for different reasons.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying.
Climate change is inconvenient. The moon landing just makes you feel like you're special because you know the truth.
Sure.
All these sheeple don't get it.
And that's why I don't care, man. Believe whatever the hell you want to believe about the moon landing, because it doesn't impact me. And you can lie about all you want, but we have literal videos of us going there. We have literal rocks that we got from there.
We have rocks that came from the moon.
Like, we have computers. Yeah. The thing you're going on the internet.
You can't trick me. They just filmed that where they filmed Tatooine.
The devil put them there.
That's completely fine, if you want to believe that, but that doesn't explain why we invested a buttload of fucking money into making hardware for no reason. Like, we had no reason to build the most complicated ass pull machines to make a stupid fucking box fly to a rock in space, but we did it. So I guess good for us. It's better than spending money on killing other people in other countries. Like, it's such a dumb thing to even bother trying to humor.
But you're not stretching that out to the rest of the stuff, though.
But it doesn't put anybody at risk to not believe in the moon landing.
That doesn't.
But climate denial is a risk. It can hurt other people.
Because it's an extension of that same way of thinking. Because it's a lot, because it's a lot easier, and you can. When I put it to you like this, you're going to understand why it's easy, because it is. It's a lot easier for somebody to say climate change is a problem because the United States government killed the electric car, and they don't really want to have hydrogen in engines because they're all in on it. And you can. This is like an attitude, an uninformed attitude, but at least a little bit informed. They know that there's hydrogen engines, but it's an uninformed attitude that I've seen people say is the climate change is a problem because they just want to keep selling fuel. But it's a lot easier to believe that there's these two entities that just, the United States government killed the electric car or something, than to believe the reality that is that 100 companies, 100 corporations are responsible for 75% of greenhouse gases, of the emission of greenhouse gases.
But
so whenever you say it's easier for them to believe that one person is doing it or one entity is doing it rather than 100 is doing it, you know what I mean? Where the easy part, an easy explanation comes in, because once you start with 100 companies, even though it's very, it's a small number, and it illustrates the issue, but it also points to systemic issues, which is what the problem is, or where the problem comes from.
I think that the way I'm more responding is I don't understand a necessity to even. I don't understand the necessity to even come up with such a conspiracy theory, let alone humor people with either disproving or believing them. If someone comes up to you,
I said the reason people believe in these things is because the narrative is seductive.
No, and I understand.
And the toxic element of believing these things is that it snowballs into that. Once you believe one conspiracy, it's a lot easier to believe additional conspiracies, and then the next you're asking about the Jewish question, and then you're talking about QAnon and shit, because it's it just snowballs. Like you've already swallowed this pill. Like it's just easy now.
Yeah, that's true. I might
especially because other people will believe.
Then you're completely unhinged, and your family doesn't want to talk to you anymore. And it's because, and you contextualize that as just they're all just in on it.
Yeah.
And then you just kind of become a weird, tragic conspiracy burnout. And there's a lot of those people.
Conspiracy
I've seen
burnout.
That,
it's a real
I've seen
threat.
that satirized in movies and TV series my entire life. People just living out in the boonies and being like,
I've seen it in person.
Yeah.
I've just seen people I know just ruin their lives because they believe dumb bullshit, and it's like there's no fixing the fact that they've chosen that to want to believe it. They're committed.
Yeah, there's very little. Yeah, there's very little you can do apart from, I suppose, being there when they decide to think differently. I suppose.
On that note, it's probably about time to wrap this up.
Yeah.
Going for a while again. If you want to send your questions in, you can send them in to Dialog Choices Podcast at gmail.com, and they'll enter our backlog for future episodes and whatnot. If you've sent it in before, we still have it, unless you got the name wrong. It's right there,
we have
though.
like 5 or 6 still ready to
yeah,
go.
I've got a handful. But yeah, thanks for watching like always, guys, and we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Listening, I guess.
We'll listen to them like next time.
Yep. Ready?
What? Oh, thank you for yes.